that was the case, it probably wouldn't be working. Yo, good afternoon. Welcome to the Stochastic.com MLB Deeper Dive presented by Sleeper. Happy Friday, everybody. I'm Dave Loughran at Lafayette_D on the Twitters, joined by Adam Scherer at Ship My Money DFS, breaking down a little 12-game action here. Early start than usual. Got to jam all 12 of these games in, so we're starting, well, should have been 5 minutes ago, but I mean, what can you do? We had an important call. How you doing, dude?
Doing pretty well. Almost the weekend. No more Dodgers and Coors. Pretty happy.
Hey, you got the Tigers at Coors, though.
Yeah, but I mean, they have like a normal run total.
I know.
You don't have to deal with a team that's like projected to score double-digit runs.
You doing anything this weekend?
Going to my mom's. So her birthday's July 4th, but we're doing the family thing on Sunday at my sister's new house. So I'm just gonna be, I guess, bouncing back and forth between my mom's and my sister's.
Nice. Well, happy to have you guys with us. Hit that thumbs up if you haven't done so yet. Subscribe to the channel. And hey, just take a single second, hit that thumbs up. That's all we ask. Atone for your sins here on the MLB Deeper Dive so we can talk some baseball and everyone can be happy. But anyway, we got 12 games. Definitely some interesting ones. MLB Top Pitchers Tool, MLB Top Stacks Tool. We'll reference all of that from the site and we'll dive straight into it. But as always, when I ask you to kick off the show before we get into each game individually, just general overview, zooming out on this slate, anything you see specifically that can make this more unique than others, or is this one kind of par for the course?
It's kind of par for the course. The thing that really stands out is pitching is really tricky. It's not that there's no good pitchers, but most of the pitchers that are the most talented are in really difficult spots, or in the case of McClanahan, really expensive. So you have a lot of good pitchers like that you're going to feel fine getting to, but there's not, I don't think there's one guy on this slate that has that like perfect, well, it's baseball. It could go poorly, but I don't see any reason it would. Everybody else has some pretty clear, okay, well, this is why I'm scared of him, but also you need the roster pitchers type slate.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about, just quickly, what about stacks? You mentioned, astutely pointed out that we have no Dodgers on this slate. When the last 3 games we had Dodgers on the slate, some of them bigger slates, some of them smaller, where it was like 20, 25, 30% top stack probability. Today we've come back to, to earth with the top team being 11%, the second team being 11%, and then 8, 6, some 5s and 4s. It's a lot more balanced than it usually is.
Yeah, and coincidentally, the Dodgers are still first at the moment, but
just a lot lower.
Right, just like you said, a lot lower. The highest aggregate ownership to any stack is like 10-ish%. Your highest owned hitter is 19%. So it's much more in line with what you would expect from a 12-game slate. There's a lot of good offensive spots. There's a lot of average-ish, high upside, relatively low median type spots. It's a lot more wide open as far as being able to kind of just do whatever you want.
Let's get into it. Milwaukee minus 140 in Pittsburgh. Nice little pitcher-friendly venue here. 8.5 run total. Freddie Peralta against the Pirates and Osvaldo Bido on the other side of this one. Peralta right now pulling 22.5% ownership, basically tied with Pablo Lopez as the third highest owned pitcher on DraftKings. 15% top 2 pitcher probability in the top pitchers tool. We'll start with him. No better place than that. And then we can get to Bido. But what do you want to do with Peralta today in this pretty decent spot against Pittsburgh?
Yeah, Peralta's one of a bunch of pitchers that are just going to project for like 20-ish% ownership today. He's good. He's not great. For the season, he does have the third highest strikeout percentage on the slate at 25.4%, 4.25 xFIP. He's had some power issues, allowing 1.55 home runs per 9, but he is in a good park in Pittsburgh. The Pirates still don't have Brian Reynolds back, so that weakens their lineup a bit. 4 flat implied run total for the Pirates. So Peralta's one. There's going to be a lot that looks similar to him, but he's one of the pitchers where it's like, okay, I think he's better than the team he's facing. He's in a good pitcher's park. He's not good enough that I would be surprised at all if it goes poorly. Like, it happens a decent amount of the time for him, but he does look like one of the better pitching options on the slate.
Hey, what about on the other side with Bido? I mean, I understand, first of all, the strikeout rate, I don't anticipate that being sustained, over the course of the season. He's only thrown 3 starts, 15 innings, over north of a 25% K rate, though. He's faced Miami, he's faced the Cubs, and he's faced the Cubs again. but it is against the Milwaukee team that does strike out at a pretty decent clip. They're not the most prominent offense in baseball right now on the active roster. WRC plus 23rd at 92, strikeout rate sitting, at 24.5%. That's fifth highest. I only ask because he's sub 8K. He's getting 5% ownership there in a pretty decent park. Any interest at all?
So this is one of those spots that I don't think I'm going to really end up getting there. The price tag is up to 7,800, so it's come up a bit. But I do think he's probably being underprojected just in general across the industry because he was really bad in the minor leagues for most of his career and just not good at getting strikeouts. It didn't look like a good pitcher. Since 2021, you've seen a massive jump in strikeout percentage, also in walk percentage, which Josh had pointed out a couple starts ago, probably suggests even more that this guy's just sort of made massive changes where he's, just pitching differently. It's leading to more strikeouts, more walks. So I do think he's a little bit better than projection systems probably give him credit for. If I were like hand building, I could see maybe just kind of taking a shot on him at 5%, but he's the kind of guy that with my process personally, I probably won't really get to because I am so projection heavy. It's a spot where it's a weakness in my process, but I also am not going to just start bumping guys up every time that I personally think they're a little bit better than projections look. So it's a spot where I don't think I'm going to get there. I wouldn't fault anybody, though, if they just wanted to get there as a low-owned play because it is a good pitcher's park. It is a good strikeout matchup, and he has seemingly made adjustments over the last few years where do I think he's a good major league pitcher long-term? No, probably not, but he's not as bad as I think projections are going to make him out to be.
And for what it's worth, 8% swinging strike rate through 3 starts. So, right. Maybe there's something.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, like, maybe some regression is coming in that 25% because right now his K rate through 3 starts is higher than it was at AAA. I mean, you're probably going to settle in around 21% or something, 20%.
Right. And the other thing is, so the seasons that he's had the improved strikeout stuff, 22% strikeout percentage at AA in 2021, 24% at AAA last year, 23.5% at AAA this year. You're still looking at a 4.69 FIP at AA in 2021, 5.49 at AAA, 4.62 at AAA this year. He's still most likely not good. It's just when you look at the most of the projection systems, for example, on FanGraphs, like if you look at the bat, they have a rest of the season 18% strikeout percentage, 5.18 FIP. I think it's more likely that he strikes out like 21% with like a 4.7 FIP or something. Like he's probably still not good. He's probably just not as bad as he's being made out to be.
For sure. Any interest in bats here? Peralta 204x ISO versus same-handed hitters on the season. Not, of course, a great park, but an 8.5 run total. Any individual bats or stacks stand out to you here?
I think Milwaukee looks okay. It's not a good park, but they do still have a 4.5 implied run total. I don't mind getting to, Tellez, Adames, Contreras, Yelich in particular. Bryce Turang was showing up a bit in some of the top sim lineups in my video earlier, just because he's 3K, second base shortstop eligible. It's not the most appealing shortstop slate. That's kind of a weird thing to say on a baseball show because we don't typically talk about it like that. But when I wrote my article earlier and I was looking at the top batters tool, and Ezekiel Tovar was just showing up as like the second best shortstop behind Mookie Betts. And anytime a guy with an 81 WRC plus looks that good, it kind of speaks to how weak the position is. So, using Turang as a value makes some sense. On the other side, you do have a $2,200 Henry Davis hitting third. Peralta's actually had some issues, particularly with right-handed power this year. Again, it's not a good park, but Henry Davis, former number 1 overall pick, 204 expected ISO allowed to righties from Peralta this year, does also have a 28% K percentage. But if you wanted to just grab a random Henry Davis bat from the Pirates, is not a terrible idea.
Let's talk about this next game, Minnesota and Baltimore. Really interesting on Pablo Lopez against Baltimore here. As you've mentioned a lot, Baltimore clearly, the Camden Yards clearly favors left-handed pitching from a power perspective. Pablo Lopez, righty though, 22% ownership, essentially the same ownership as Peralta today. Almost identical price point, identical top 2 probability on the top pitchers tool. Like these guys in our tools look identical. The one difference here is, and it might not be the greatest matchup. There's certainly some power in this Baltimore lineup, and they strike out only 21% of the time versus righties. But Lopez has a 30% strikeout rate on the season.
Yeah, he does have a very good strikeout rate. One thing that stands out is that he's been good against lefties, but much better against righties as far as strikeouts go. 25% K percentage to lefties, 33.9% to righties. So you are getting a Baltimore lineup that is going to be left-handed heavy. Mullins, Rutschman, Santander, Loughran, 1-4 are left-handed. Henderson hitting sixth. And then Frazier and Bemboom hitting 8-9. Not to say that Frazier and Bemboom are good at hitting, but they are left-handed. So overall, it is a good spot for Lopez, but you are getting this left-handed heavy Baltimore team in a park that plays up left-handed power. It is a dangerous spot. It does knock down his strikeout projection a bit, but like we said at the top of the show, you're not going to find any perfect pitchers on this slate. Lopez is still one of the most talented. He has the second highest strikeout percentage at 30.1%. 3.44 xFIP is, I believe, second best or third best on the slate behind Cobb and Paxton. So he does still look good. He looks very comparable to Freddie Peralta. Like, he's a better pitcher than Peralta. Peralta's got the better matchup and better park.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But if Pablo Lopez is just missing bats at an elite, continues to miss bats at an elite clip, it might not matter. So what about Dean Kramer? Why do we pronounce names like this? Why do we do this? You know,
pronounce Kramer as Kramer.
I mean, it's just silly.
What do you think it should be Creamer?
Yeah, Kremer.
Kremer, I guess, could make sense. Like, you would need the A for it to be Creamer.
I mean, like, I was doing a fantasy football video today, and it was Nick Westbrook Aquina. Like, where do we get that from? You know,
I had no idea how to. I never know how to pronounce Aquina. I didn't know how to pronounce Aquina.
And I get it, you know, but like Kramer, throw an AY in there, get rid of the E. You know what I mean? Right. Let's just pronounce everything the way that it's spelled. It would make life a whole lot easier.
Yeah, that's true.
How do you feel about the Kramer today?
Yeah, he's another one of the pitchers where he's getting more ownership than he typically would at this price just because of the pitching on the slate. But it is a really good strikeout matchup against Minnesota. Active roster with about a 28% K percentage on the year. Kramer himself is pretty average and slightly below average in terms of strikeouts. 20.6% K percentage, 4.36 xFIP. Just, you know, another decent pitcher, but he is 8,100, which is nice. So we have him with a 9% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, about 16% ownership. There are pitchers in this 8 to 9K price range that are getting less ownership that are interesting to me as tournament pivots that I don't think are getting enough ownership relative to Kramer, but he does project as one of the better mid-range options just because of the strikeouts in Minnesota's lineup.
Bats on either side, 8.5 run total. By the way, Minnesota minus 105 on the road. So even matchup, pretty similar implied run totals in this game too.
Yeah, I mean, I never mind getting to Baltimore, especially when they're facing a righty in Camden Yards. They have a really high ceiling. They have a lot of power. They give you some stolen base upside. But I do actually prefer the Minnesota side here. Dean Kramer's had major issues with left-handed bats this year. 407 expected WOBA, 259 expected ISO, and you get these guys coming into Camden Yards. $3,100 for Edouard Julien hitting second. Kirilloff is only $2,900 batting cleanup. Kepler batting sixth looks good. I have no idea why Joey Gallo is batting ninth, but I do like the spot for him. It's not to say that you can't go to Correa, Buxton, Lewis. Obviously, the Jeffers, like these are solid right-handed hitters. And Kramer has still given up some power to righties with a 188 expected ISO. But for one, he's just been worse across the board to lefties. And two, we know that this park is so much better for left-handed power. So even though I think both pitchers here are good enough plays, and Baltimore is typically the team that I prefer getting to, Kramer just has this glaring issue that, you know, with left-handed bats, that line basically makes it really hard for him to pitch in this park, and you have good enough left-handed bats on Minnesota.
All right. So I have a question for you, Adam, and one that you are obligated to answer because I'm hosting this show and you're doing the analysis. Boston and Toronto. Plus 120, Boston on the road, 9-run total. Is there any argument at all to going to James Paxton at a similar price point to Freddie Peralta and Pablo Lopez, both of whom are getting 22+% ownership, at a similar price point where James Paxton right now is pulling sub 3% ownership? He has a 12% top play or top 2 probability in the top pitcher tool. Just looking at this now, before I hadn't even seen this before I asked you. 9% leverage score, But I mean, yeah, he's getting no ownership, and understandably the matchup is tough. But what are your thoughts on him today at a similar price?
The argument is very simply that he's getting 3% ownership and he's the best strikeout pitcher on the slate with a 31.8% K percentage. He has the second best xFIP on the slate, only trailing, he has the best xFIP on the slate. I thought there was somebody slightly better, but it's just him at 3.19. He leads the slate in strikeout percentage, xFIP. The matchup is brutal. It's in Rogers Center. It's against a really good Toronto team that is not only good at producing, but also doesn't strike out a lot. He has struck out 35% of the right-handed hitters he's faced so far this year, though. 265 expected WOBA. That is all. The upside at that ownership is the argument in favor of him. He doesn't project that well. We have him projected for 15 DraftKings points, which is 6th most on the slate, but he's also the second most expensive pitcher. So that's sort of the issue you're going to run into from a projection standpoint, and it's why he's not getting more ownership, is that yeah, he's going on their own, like you said, 12% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, 3% ownership. But for example, you can look at Alex Cobb and get basically the same exact play for $1,700 less in terms of top 2 pitcher versus ownership, not in terms of same play in terms of strikeouts and all of that. Barrios on the other side of this game is cheaper, 5% owned. You have, Bobby Miller at 8,900 against KC at 8%. So there's a lot of just cheaper. There are a lot of guys that are cheaper where if you're like, well, I'm willing to take on risk, because they're low owned, you can do it for less. And this is a slate that has a lot of good bats to pay for. So I think all of that coming together is why it's difficult to get to Paxton, but he's sort of similar to Vito for me, where not that they're similar as pitchers at all, but where it's another spot where I'm looking at this fully aware that I'm going to have trouble getting to Paxton because my whole process is so projection heavy. And it just gives me the potential to, at the end of the day, be like, wow, you're an idiot because you didn't just play 4% on James Paxton, who scored 30 points.
Right. Yeah. And 161 X ISO against righties, 265 expected WOBA, 17.5% swinging strike rate. Those are good numbers.
Yeah.
Also, where do you think Toronto ranks on the active roster versus lefties in ISO this year?
This year, probably not as high as they should, since you asked me the question.
29th.
Really?
Yeah.
So I have it since the start of last year. Still only 141.
Yeah. 133 this year. Oakland's worse than them versus lefties.
I'm trying to think why that would be. Because this could be an example where there's a big difference between starting lineup and active roster.
Certainly could be. Yeah. I mean, they got 8 righties in the lineup today, but you're right. That could certainly play a role.
But yeah, as far as Paxton goes, this is the type of play where a few years ago, before I was basically had an automated process and I was, building stuff by hand, I would love this Paxton spot and just say, look, I'm going to take the best pitcher on the slate. Nobody else is playing him. Hopefully it goes well. I am certainly better at DFS now than I was then when I was making decisions like that. But it is the kind of spot that just stands out as he is going on their own. The ceiling is massive. I'm going to be annoyed if he has a big game and I'm not there.
So what you're saying is it's not necessarily a bad process. It's just not your process anymore.
Right. I've improved my process, but I do think the weak point of my process and the strength, it's all very data heavy, but it can be tough to completely capture the fact that Paxton is so much better than every pitcher on the slate, basically, in terms of talent.
For sure.
With the exception of McClanahan.
All right. Hey, what about Jose Barrios on the other side of this game? We talked a lot about Paxton. Anything stand out for Jose Barrios today against Boston?
Kind of similar, where he's low owned. It's not a good matchup against the Red Sox, but they do only have a 3.9 implied run total. Barrios isn't great, but he's not terrible. 22% K percentage this year, a little below 1 home run per 9 innings, 4.07 xFIP. He got lit up by lefties last year. He's gotten it more in check this year. He's still not good against them, but 348 expected WOBA, 186 expected ISO to lefties this year. Last year was a 223 expected ISO, 359 expected WOBA. So you have seen a little bit of an improvement there. But the reason I mention it is that you have 5 lefties in the top 6 for Boston, and they're not bad ones. Duran, Verdugo, Yoshida, Devers, Casas, all in the top 6. Yoshida and Devers in particular, obviously, are going to look good here. So very, very dangerous matchup for Barrios. Probably a better matchup than Paxton has, but they're sort of similar in that they are more talented than the very little amount of ownership they're getting, but the matchups aren't very exciting.
From a hitting perspective, both teams 2.9% ownership stack share right now, or stack ownership share in the top stack tool. Both of them 3% top stack probability. So, I mean, it looks like they're getting owned probably around where they should be.
Yeah. They're two high upside offenses in tough spots. I think I do actually prefer the Red Sox side by a little bit, just because they're a little bit less expensive. They do have these left-handed bats. Now, keep in mind, the left-handed home run park factor in Rogers Center over the last 3 seasons is 86. That's the third worst in baseball, or fourth worst. Their right-handed home run park factor is third best. So that's more in line with the way the Blue Jays lineup looks. I just sort of like the matchup for the lefties against Barrios. I like the park more for the Blue Jays.
Let's keep it moving then. Game 4, San Francisco Giants, New York Mets. Alex Cobb returning from the IL. Carlos Carrasco on the other side of this one. All right, so you'd mentioned Cobb a minute ago. Pretty interesting. He threw in three and 2/3 innings, I think, in his rehab assignment. Struck out 9 over that stretch, which is pretty wild. I don't know how many pitches he's going to throw. I think he got up to 60 in that one. But yeah, going up against the New York Mets, not the greatest spot. He's $8,600. We have him 11.8 top 2 percentage in the top pitchers tool. What are you doing with Cobb today, making his return?
I think he's an interesting tournament pitcher because of the lack of ownership. I would certainly like him more if we knew how deep into this game he was going to go. If he wasn't coming back from the injured list. I assume he's going to be not like limited, or not overly limited, but probably not going super deep into the game, like 85 pitches, something like that. It's not a good strikeout matchup. It's not a good matchup in general, but it is a good park, and it is a good pitcher on a slate where we don't have a lot of good pitching, and most of the competent pitchers that we do have are getting ownership as long as they're not crazily overpriced. So I have some interest there, but again, you kind of run into the issue of like, if he gets through 5 innings at 74 pitches, does he come back out, or are you stuck with 14 DraftKings points at 8,600?
My guess is no.
Right, that's my guess also.
I don't know, but if I had to guess, and he throws 76 pitches through 4 or 5 innings, if he's a 76 pitches through 5 innings, they should probably let him keep going. But I think, yeah, it all depends. 6% ownership going to Carlos Carrasco today. This is Adam, this is purely a price play, $6,000. Definitely not the Carlos Carrasco of old that could go out there and mow down opposing lineups. But yeah, he's dirt cheap. 15% strikeout rate to a 10.5% walk rate this season. Doesn't look great.
No, it doesn't. And I'm hoping that, so I did my Sims video earlier and I used my own projections. I was talking about, being able to use custom projections in the tool. So I used my own, and Carlos Carrasco came out as my highest owned pitcher. So I'm hoping that changes. But like you said, it is a price play. He's only $6,000. We talked about this yesterday. Obviously it was a different slate, five games on that one, but we talked about it with Keaton Wynn from the Giants, where in his case, it was all right. Well, he's probably not going super deep into this game. He projects to be a average major league pitcher, but he's 4K, and you can just completely punt this position and do whatever you want with bats. It's kind of similar today. Carrasco's been actively terrible so far this season. 15% K percentage, like you said, 10.5% walk percentage, 2 home runs per 9 innings, 5.3 xFIP. But you do get strikeouts from the Giants lineup. You still do not have Mike Yastrzemski or Michael Conforto in this lineup. So that's a benefit for Carrasco. You have a park that isn't great for power. It's still a 4.8 implied run total for the Giants, but at 6K, and I think the biggest thing, only 6% ownership, it's really easy to see how, if you happen to just get lucky and get a good start from Carlos Carrasco, it just opens up the entire slate for you to win, because you're able to get really good hitters with him. He's not popular. So other people are still on these, a lot of other lineups are going to have these other pitchers that are very questionable plays themselves. So the ownership and the salary are the two big things here. There is nothing at all that gives me any confidence about Carrasco. It is simply, when this goes right, these lineups look really, really good. When they go poorly, or when it goes poorly, you probably weren't going to win anyway. So just chalk that up as another loss.
Okay, so all of that makes sense, right? Especially at the price point, everything you're saying. What about low-owned San Francisco stacks today at Citi Field? Not the greatest venue, but Carrasco's allowing north of 2 home runs per 9, 252, I think, ex-ISO versus same-handed bats. He's allowed 8 home runs to righties and 120 batters faced. Like, there's some clear red flags from a power perspective with Carrasco. San Francisco strikes out a lot, but they also have power. They can also hit for average. What do you make of this stack today or any individual bats?
Yeah, they're a good hitting team overall. Like I had said before, one thing hurting them is that they are missing 2 of their good hitting outfielders. Sure. But yeah, I mean, the lefties obviously are fine still at the top, particularly. Lamont Wade, Jock Peterson, those guys look good. Patrick Bailey for a catcher can hit. Probably won't continue to hit as well as he has been, but doesn't need to be a solid option as a $3,700 catcher. But you mentioned the same handed power too. If you want to look to Wilmer Flores, JD Davis, Tyro Estrada, there is upside for these guys. I would be a lot more interested if they were playing somewhere else, like not Citi Field, but also not San Francisco, like some random neutral field. But still coming in as a middle of the pack stack, about a 5% chance of being the top stack, 4% ownership. I don't mind getting to them.
Any interest in bats on the other side?
Not really. 4.3 implied run total, tough park to hit in, good pitcher on the other side. You know, we talked about not being sure exactly how deep into the game Cobb goes, which makes it a questionable play from a DFS standpoint, but 3.25 xFIP, 0.7 home runs per 9 innings, assuming you're getting like 5 innings of that, if not 6, doesn't really look like a spot that I want to get to.
All right, let's keep it rolling then. We got Miami and Atlanta. Brian Hoeing. Is that how you pronounce it? Hoeing?
That's how I pronounce it. I don't know if that's how he pronounces it.
Out? Is that, yeah, that is that. I mean, I looked it up because I just assumed that it was right, but who knows? Like I've said, the way we pronounce things, this could be, Rogers.
Right.
And Michael Soroka, Miami plus 155, 10-run total in this game.
I don't see a pronunciation thing on Baseball Reference, which makes me think it's pronounced how it's
exactly. Whenever I don't see a pronunciation, I just assume, because I went to Baseball Reference too. I just assume it makes the most sense that it is what it should be. So good. But do you have any interest in pitching on either side of this game right now?
Soroka is mildly interesting to me. Miami's implied run total has come up like a quarter of a run since this morning, but he's interesting just because he's not getting any ownership and he's only 7,100. He's made 2 starts with the Braves this season and was absolutely awful. Went back to AAA. His AAA numbers are solid enough. So not that you're just directly, not that you're expecting him to just replicate what he's doing at AAA, but I did like seeing that because this is somebody that came up, had a solid season in like 29 starts in 2019, then had a bunch of injuries and really just hasn't pitched in the major league since then. He's made 5 total starts, 3 in 2020, 2 this year. So seeing him be able to at least have success at AAA, like that makes me feel a little bit better about his prospects going forward than if he was just getting lit up everywhere. So the fact he is only 7,100, he is facing a Miami offense that isn't that great, though they are better now that they have Chisholm back. At 1% owned, I don't mind getting some, but still not going to go crazy with it. And still not particularly confident in him.
Yeah, dude, those starts were atrocious.
Yeah, his most recent starts at AAA. And also 7-inning complete game last time out. So like he is stretched out.
At AAA, you're saying?
Yeah. His last, so since he was demoted, his most recent major league appearance was June 4th against Arizona, 3 2/3 innings, 5 earned runs. He went back to AAA. He went 6 innings, 1 earned run, 6 strikeouts on the 10th. He went 6 innings, 1 earned run, 3 strikeouts on the 16th. He went 7 innings, 1 earned run, 9 strikeouts on the 22nd. So wow. This isn't a situation where like he's coming back from another injury and you don't know how deep into the game he's going to go. If he's pitching well, he's going to give you 6-7 innings.
Would you rather Soroka at 7,100, say you're playing like one tournament lineup, or would you rather Carrasco at 6K?
Rather, in terms of which one will I feel better about? Soroka.
Okay. But which
one?
Well,
know if that ends up being the case for me, but
right. I was gonna say which one you're getting more of, likely Carrasco, or at least that's what it sounded like from earlier runs.
Yeah, at least as of this morning, I was getting more Carrasco. Again, lineups change, everything's gonna be different, but I think based on what happened this morning, it's likely I get more Carrasco. I would feel better if it was Soroka.
How about the bats against Hoeing today?
I like the Braves here. They aren't getting much ownership. They're third in top stack percentage at about 8%, but only pulling 5% ownership. The two teams ahead of them, the Dodgers are pulling 8%. The Tigers are pulling 10. Tigers, obviously, their own thing because they're free in Coors Field. But this is a really high upside team. They're in Atlanta. I assume it's hot and humid because it's the end of June, and that's what happens in Atlanta. Looks like it's supposed to be 85 to 90 degrees. Wind blowing out a little bit. 5.75 implied run total. I don't know where that came from, but it's a really high upside spot for them. Hoeing's not anything special as a pitcher. 151 expected ISO to righties, 101 expected ISO to lefties.
Pretty good though.
What?
He's been pretty good though.
Yeah, he's
only
been fine.
4 starts, but what's that?
Yeah, he's been fine, but he's not somebody that I expect. Like, I'm not looking at him as somebody that you should be worried about taking Braves hitters against.
Sure. Yeah, just hasn't allowed power. But who knows? Maybe, like you're saying, Atlanta, the conditions here, humid. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, if you go back to, if you add last season onto this season, because he's thrown 345 pitches to righties, 188 to lefties. And like you said, he has been good. He's limited power, hasn't struck out a lot of guys. But you go back to last year, you get up to 519 pitches to righties, 281 to lefties. Now you're up to a 196 expected ISO to righties, 184 to lefties. We can't go back any further than that because that's as long as he's been in the majors. But it's not likely that he's a particularly good pitcher. He's not like a highly ranked prospect or anything like that. Sure. Looking at the projection systems on FanGraphs, the bat has the highest strikeout percentage rest of season for him at 18.4%, 4.2 FIP. Those are the most favorable numbers of any of the projection systems listed. So, again, you throw a pitcher like that up against the Braves in Atlanta, and then you also tell me Atlanta's like 5% owned, and I'm definitely interested.
Yeah, no question. Yeah. No, I was just pointing out that he hasn't been like decent amount of ground balls, not a lot of power, but at the same time, yeah, you walk into this park and this matchup, it's probably going to be relatively difficult for you. Also, I have no idea how many pitches he throws. Like, I guess earlier in the season, he had 87 pitches in April. He hasn't thrown more than 65 pitches in a start, but that was last start. It looks like he's been worked up 3 straight starts now. Probably has a decent leash. So not that you're playing him anyway, but any other thoughts on this game?
There's upside for the Marlins just because there is the chance that Soroka is still terrible. But sure. It's just tough to really want to get to that team. Jazz Chisholm in particular at 5,200, I like, but it's one of those, like, if you're playing 150 lineups, yeah, you probably take a few shots at the Marlins and just hope that you get that same version of Soroka. But if you're playing 3 lineups or 1 lineup or 20 lineups, you're probably not really messing with Miami.
Yeah, the guys are right in chat. Maybe it is. Maybe it's the Canadian wildfire smoke that's got you coughing a little bit.
Yeah, I'll blame that.
We really should blame them. I have true disdain for Canadians at this point.
It was messing with me yesterday, so I just didn't go outside today.
I took the dog for a mile this morning, and it was fine.
Okay, it looked well. Now it's raining, and I can't see anything. But for most of the day, it's still been like really hazy here.
Yeah,
like smoky.
Sons of bitches, man.
Yeah, I thought we were done with that, and that's why I just walked outside yesterday. Went to get coffee, and I stepped outside, and I'm like, it just tastes like straight dust. Like, I thought construction was like, because there's a bunch of construction around my building.
Yeah.
I was just like blaming them, but yeah, no, it's the Canadians again.
All right, let's talk about Houston and Texas. Blanco and John Gray. So in our top pitchers tool, by the way, 50% off all of our tools, in case you guys were wondering. Like, you hear us referencing top pitchers tool, top stacks tool. You want to do a full week, 50% off. Wisely, you would do a full month because you're just getting way bigger of a discount. You can do one sport, baseball, or you can do every sport. Get MMA, get PGA in full swing, NASCAR, all of that stuff. Get the MLB, PGA lineup generator, you name it. Like, just across the board, all of our tools, tennis, 50% off. Or you go, you know what? Not looking to shell that out right now, but I have heard good things about the MLB lineup generator. And I also heard it was $4.48 for the first week, which sounds pretty good. At least that's what I've heard. Well, the MLB lineup generator is $4.48 a week. Link is in the description and in chat. And I told you I wasn't going to use those screenshots for my boys that took down that big money the other day, but we got a new one. So I'm going to use this because Jordan can throw it up on the screen. Second day playing DFS, and I ship the $1 25K mini max, $2,500. Play second in the $3 20K moonshot for $1,000. All thanks to Stochastic and the guys there, all the great insight, and the MLB lineup generator. So shout out to Derby. What does that say, Jordan? Derby status? What is it? It's hard for me to see. Shout out to Derby status. Look at that, $3,500 attributed to the lineup generator. You can lock your players in. You can swap players out. Now, granted, you don't want to get too crazy with this because you're already getting lineups spit out to you that are, plus EV lineups that we've already sorted out all the bad ones. We've erased the bad ones. You can discard the ones you don't like, save the ones you like, upload them straight to CSV. You can select all of your stack types as well. I mean, the options are endless with something like this, especially when you're getting it for less than $4.50 for your first week. But yeah, shout out to our boy Derby Status. You guys want to check it out. Link is in the description and in chat. $448 for the first week, then $895 after. But think of it this way. What do you have to lose? You spend $5 on some pretty dumb stuff, right? I mean, we all do. I do daily. For this, you're actually putting yourself in a spot where you could have something that's returning money on your investment. And if it doesn't, you're down $4. So link in the description and in chat, whether you want to do 50% off everything or just get the lineup generator, which apparently has done very well for a lot of our viewers lately. And shout out to you guys. All right, Adam. So let's go to this Houston and Texas game. What do you want to do with John Gray at this current ownership, 28% on DraftKings? You're muted.
He's another one of these.
Coughing again?
I was, and I just forgot to unmute it. He's another one of these pitchers that, it's not an ideal matchup against Houston. The lineup is weaker than usual without Alvarez, but it's still not a great strikeout matchup, especially at the top and in the middle of the order. But they have a 3.7 implied run total. Gray started out the season really slowly, turned things around, then had some blister issues, but he did throw 82 or 83 pitches his last time out. I don't expect him to be limited here. So I think he's one of the better pitchers on the slate. Again, that's with the context of it's not a matchup that you're typically taking somebody and playing them at 28% ownership, but it's what the slate's giving you. So he looks pretty good here.
All right. Jim said, how do you get Derby from Perez? That's how we pronounce Perez these days, dude. Derby, just like everything else. No, Jordan, wasn't his Twitter handle Derby Status? Right? Derby Status. Yeah, that's what I saw. And then his DK name was Perez Status, I guess. All right. But yeah. All right. Well, how about this one, Adam? On the other side of this game, do you have any interest in Blanco? Now, they're plus 145 in Texas. Only an 8.5 run total here, which is actually, believe it or not, the second lowest on this entire slate.
Yeah. So Blanco at 6,800, I think is okay in tournaments. He's showing up a lot in the version of the Sims that I ran with our projections. We were projecting him a little bit higher. But yeah, we have him with 13.2% or 13.2 DraftKings points, which seems, a little optimistic, but he does have a 22% strikeout percentage this year. So he has that going for him. The problem is that he's walked 11.5% of hitters and he's given up 2.7 home runs per 9. And he's also facing one of the best offenses in baseball. Texas active roster has a 120 WRC plus, 22.5% K percentage. They do only have a 4.8 implied run total. I say only because I just would have expected it to be higher here. But if you want to use Blanco as your Carrasco, where he's 5% owned, he's cheap, let's hope to get lucky, or, as a Soroka, that's perfectly fine. You just shouldn't have any confidence in it because he's got a really tough matchup and he's not that good.
You have what about Texas stacks against Blanco? He is striking out 24% of batters this season, but at the same time, like you said, I'm seeing 5. Did it come down to 4.8? I mean, it's around 5 regardless, but 237 x ISO versus righties this season. Is this one of these spots where you could get to some Blanco, but also be considering some Texas Rangers?
Yeah, I like the Rangers at 2.5% aggregate ownership. They're expensive, so you have that. But you mentioned the power numbers, the same-handed hitters so far this year. Limited sample, 338 pitches thrown. If you go back to last year, it still only gets to 412. But a 237 expected ISO, 360 expected WOBA, at the very least, tells you that there's no real need to be shying away from Semien, Garcia, Josh Young, Ezekiel Duran. These guys all having solid years. And then the lefties with Corey Seager, Nathaniel Lowe, and Jonah Heim all in the lineup. 165 expected ISO to them, 340 expected WOBA. I'll still take my chances getting to those guys. So I do think the Rangers are one of the good like pay up stacks that you can get to that are not getting a lot of ownership.
All right. And then just for the sake of making sure we leave no stone unturned here, what are your thoughts on John Gray today? Really has done a pretty decent job of allowing power, allowing a sub 300 WOBA to both lefties and righties this season. Been pretty good.
My thoughts on Gray?
I'm sorry, on Houston bats against Gray.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, if you play Kyle Tucker or Bregman or Altuve, cool, but there's nothing that looks good.
Okay. Let's keep it moving then. Dodgers and Kansas City. You mentioned it at the top of the show. The Dodgers still have the highest top stack probability in the top stack tool. 11%, 8% ownership. So they're getting positive leverage. They don't have one of the higher stack scores on this slate. I assume, Adam, a lot of that has to do with just the fact that they are coming in very low as far as top value score goes.
Yeah, I think it's the pricing. We have them with about a 2% chance of being the top value.
All right, so we'll go to pitchers first, actually, just to bang this out and keep the pattern as we always do. Bobby Miller, Alec Marsh, 9.5 run total here. By the way, the Dodgers minus 215 on the road in this game. Just a massive favorites. 6.1 implied run total. So, yeah. And what's Kansas City's 4.2? They're getting a little bit of ownership, and we'll talk about that. But do you have pitching interest on either side of this game?
Not a lot. We also do have weather here. That's something that it actually has the potential to be a pretty big pain on this slate. It looks like you're supposed to get storms in Kansas City, and if they go over the park, you're probably in trouble. So that's something that we'll have to keep an eye on. If the slate started right now and I had to decide, I'd play this game, but definitely something to pay attention to. As far as the pitching goes, I think either side is actually playable in tournaments, but they are risky. You're not really going to love it. Alec Marsh would simply be because he's 4K flat. He's put up good strikeout numbers in the minors. Hope to get lucky in a brutal matchup against the Dodgers. For Bobby Miller, I'm a little surprised he's not getting more ownership just because of the question marks around other pitchers. Like if Dean Kramer is going to pull 16% ownership in Camden Yards against a team with a bunch of lefties, I feel like Miller should be closer than 8%. Miller's not a great strikeout pitcher, but he does have good stuff. Projects around the 22% strikeout percentage going forward. You're getting a weak Kansas City team with a 3.8 or so implied run total in Kauffman Stadium. It is hot there, so the ball probably carries a bit more than usual, but there are strikeouts and weak hitters in this lineup. I'm a little surprised Miller's not getting at least a little bit more ownership.
So Alec Marsh getting just thrown into the fire today, Adam. You're talking about a guy that's making his first career start at the major league level against the LA Dodgers, who have an implied run total north of 6. Now, he's been good. You know, he's been good, but only 15 innings pitched this year at AAA. Strikeout rate sitting around 29%, but clearly not the spot you're looking to walk into in your major league debut. How do we approach the Dodgers bats today at their ownership, which isn't that high, but they're expensive?
Yeah, they're expensive. So they're another team kind of similar to Texas, where they're going under-owned when you compare top stack percentage to ownership because they're tough to get to. 1.5 to 2% chance of being the top value stack, 5th in stack score, as I think you mentioned at the top. I like getting to them here. As long as the weather cooperates. You know, Marsh, like you said, solid enough numbers in the minors, but you're still certainly giving the advantage to the Dodgers. So if you can find the salary for them, great. One other nice thing about them, though, is that you do get a cheap bottom of the order. Betts, Freeman, Smith, Muncy, JD at the top are all at least 5K on DraftKings. So if you're trying to stack them 1 through 5, then you're probably talking about, you know, taking some pretty dicey pitching. But you can grab, you know, a couple of those guys, get Outman, Peralta, Hayward, you know, some combination of them. Rojas is 2,900 and still get a 5-man Dodger stack that isn't that expensive. Obviously, it's a little bit weaker than if you're playing the actual really good hitters, but you can make up for that with one-offs pitching, whatever it may be. So it's not like it's expensive top to bottom. And the guys at the top that are expensive certainly deserve it.
Any thoughts on KC bats, assuming weather plays in our favor?
Not really. Witt and Perez are always solid at their respective positions. Melendez and Prado are cheap, but I think they're one of the least appealing spots.
Almost 600 people with us. We are 12 likes away from 100. Sotex beat me to it. He said 550, only 85 likes. Why is MLB Deeper Dive so difficult? Hit the thumbs up. Yeah, it's atone for your sins, as Sotex said. Hit that thumbs up. There's 10 of you out there, 9 of you now. There's 9 of you out there that can, show us some love around here and get us north of that number. Who knows? Maybe by the end of the show, we hit 150 on a Friday. Everybody's in a good mood. Why is MLB Deeper Dive so tough, Sotex? Because MLB, people don't watch MLB like they watch NBA or they watch NFL. Like the NFL show, we were aiming like 1,500 likes at times. It was crazy. With this, I'm like, hey, can we get to 100? With the NBA, 500, 700 likes. Just MLB's a different game. What are you smiling at, Jordan? What are you smirking at? Yeah, it's crazy, right? Like NFL will have 4,500 people watching it at the same concurrently. It's just, plus it's also more of a novelty because it's Sunday. But yeah, baseball's different. It's a grind. It's long. Some people love it. We like talking about it, but it's a little different. We are at 131 thumbs up though, Adam. So 132 now. Did you hit the thumbs up?
I have.
Man, you really changed your game up recently. I gotta say, I'm proud of you, dude.
Yeah, I mean, I do what I can. I started to hit the like button.
I gotta say, you really turned things around. All right, let's talk about Detroit and Colorado. Coors Field today. We've got the Michael Lorenz and Austin Gomber game. 11-run total. If you wonder, how bad is Colorado? Detroit's favored on the road here. It's a bad Colorado baseball team today. But first, let's just get this out of the way, and then we can talk bats. Any interest?
I don't know.
All right. I was going to ask in case some of you were not understanding what just transpired there. I was going to ask him if he had any interest in fading both of these pitchers. He gave me a hard swipe on the head. No.
Yeah, just have to jam them both in.
Gotta jam these guys. No interest in pitching here. All right, let's talk about about bats here. So right now, top stack probability, Detroit at 10.7%, Colorado's at 6.4%, getting 4.9% aggregate ownership on the stack. Same with Detroit, 10% ownership though. But Detroit by far the highest stack score on the slate. What do you make of how DraftKings has priced these Detroit Tigers for a Coors Field slate?
It's dumb. So the only thing, it's bad, but the only thing that sort of makes it interesting, at least, is that Detroit is also terrible. So you're getting a team with one of the highest implied run totals on the slate. They're in a great park. They have a really good matchup against Gomber. Most teams, if they were priced like this, would just be impossible to get away from. Here, it's close enough to correct. They should be more expensive, but it's a situation where they're giving you some of the best point per dollar values, but you have to keep in mind that that's not really how things necessarily work in MLB because of the way things are scored. You don't necessarily need the best point per dollar guy at every position. Raw points end up really mattering. So I was talking about it with Josh this morning. I like the Tigers here. I think they're a good stack. They were showing up as my highest owned stack in the Sims video earlier, all of that. The ownership isn't problematic. Matt Vierling leads the way at 19%. He's one of the best point per dollar values on the slate. Ibanez is second base outfield, batting third at 3K, getting 16%. Torkelson's at 14. Haas is at 10. Everybody else is sub 10%. So I'm not really concerned about the ownership or anything. The one thing that I was saying to Josh this morning is when you look at the teams with these implied run totals between 5.5 and 6, and so you're getting, the Tigers, the Braves, the Dodgers, the Angels. The Rangers are a little bit lower, but I'll include them in this for what I'm about to say. When, let's say, all of those teams score 7 runs, most likely the Tigers aren't really that useful other than as like filler in a lineup because they're more likely to have just scored their runs by getting singles and doubles falling in Coors Field. They don't have a lot of power. Whereas when teams like, the ones I just mentioned score 7-8 runs, there's a really good chance you got 2, 3, 4 home runs from that stack. So that's why I think that even though the Tigers are clearly underpriced from a projection standpoint, in tournaments, it's not that glaring because you're playing for those true ceiling outcomes, and these guys just don't hit for a lot of power. So I actually think the pricing here is more of an issue in cash games than it is in tournaments, because in cash games where you are more worried about just median outcomes, they do just look great across the board. In tournaments, it's like, well, they look good, but also, do I really want 5 guys that can't hit trying to hit home runs for me?
Right. That's a good point. Hey, by the way, I had seen your tweet. You had showed me a tweet you had about ESPN today. I hadn't even looked. Man, they let go of a lot of people and many with considerable name value.
Yeah, I probably missed some, but I saw Kellerman, Colbert, and McShay.
Steve Young, Keyshawn Johnson, Jeff Van Gundy, Jalen Rose, Matt Hasselbeck, Ashley Brewer. A lot of them.
Okay, I had missed. I'd seen Van Gundy. I had missed.
I don't know who Ashley Brewer is, or June Lee, or LaFonso Ellis, but
LaFonso Ellis played something, but I didn't know he worked for ESPN.
Pretty crazy. Reported 10 more expected to be let go today.
Yeah, it's wild.
And you had said that it's how did you phrase it?
Stephen A remaining employed is a microcosm of everything wrong in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm
and that's not a Stephen A dig. It's a
dig. It's an indictment on what people want to watch.
Right, exactly. Right. Stephen A is extremely good at what he does.
Dude, people hate him. He's so brilliant with how he formulates what he says. Like, he knows exactly what he's doing. It really is brilliant. He's made a career of just like, he's one of the original shit posters and trolls before social media existed.
Right. Yeah. He was willing to go that route, and he's really good at it. Like, I don't mean it as a knock on Stephen A at all, other than I prefer a world where he's like either a normal reporter or just doesn't get on air. But like, he's very good at what he does. I'm more talking shit about people that actually watch him.
Sure. Sign of the economy, sign of the times, or sign of ESPN not evolving, or everything?
I think it's all of that, but also ESPN going another direction. Like, didn't they just paid McAfee, right?
Yeah.
So to me, it just seems like they're cleaning house. I assume they're keeping Stephen A around. Maybe he's one of the next 10, but I doubt it. So I assume they're keeping him around. They just gave money to McAfee to come over there and do his thing. It seems like they're probably just kind of going another direction.
Really, I watch like 10 hours of ESPN a day, dude.
I might watch 10 hours a year.
I
know you are, but I'm saying, like, it's definitely one. I feel like, and I don't know, you're older than me, so maybe you got a little bit more of like the MTV era, but I feel like ESPN is like our MTV. Like, we grew up with, Sports Center, like, being really good and all the good, like, just sports programming. And then now it's just like a drama channel.
Yeah, for sure. But you know what else? Yeah, it is. Yeah, you're right. And also, they go away from what people want. And like, MTV for a little while had some sick reality shows. Like, Robin Big was awesome.
Yeah, but even that, and like, I agree. I didn't watch it at the time, but like, even that, if you're somebody that just like loves music and wants to watch music videos, you're probably sitting there saying, like, cool, these assholes like watching whatever reality shows these are.
But at the same time, it wouldn't make a difference because YouTube was always going to take over as far as videos.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, I see what you're saying. It is similar in that sense. It'll be interesting to see the direction they take, because they just laid off a lot of people and like considerable names as well. Anyway.
Yeah. Same page, Andrew Jennison. Like, every morning, 6 a.m. Sports Center, eat breakfast, get ready, go to school, come home, watch the evening Sports Center. If I'm lucky, catch baseball tonight. Like, totally different now.
Yeah, I used to sit there and like just watch the ticker to see the scores.
Yeah,
because there was no other way to do it at the time. Like,
I can remember.
Wait till you. Yeah, but I'm a little older than you, but you don't remember doing that?
No, I do. And I was going to say, I can remember coming down like in the morning and telling my mom not to ruin the Orioles game from the night before, and then sitting there and trying to play the game of like, the sidebar, like, are they going to get to the Orioles before I need to leave?
Yeah, exactly, dude. And you used to sit there and, you'd have to wait for the rerun because the replay of it because you missed it the first time. Now you can just type in Google or in YouTube, Baltimore Orioles recap from the night before, and there it is. So yeah.
Sick days from school. You'd have SportsCenter memorized because you just watched the same show like 4 times in a row.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you just see it on loop. Colorado bats. Any thoughts here before we move on to these final 4 games?
Yeah, they're getting like half the ownership of the Tigers, and they're not that much worse. Lorenzen is probably a better pitcher than Gomber, but expected ISO north of 200 to both sides of the plate this year. Ryan McMahon in particular looks really good at 4,800. One of the league leaders in hard contact percentage and also in soft contact percentage as far as having the least amount. So you kind of have to like him here. You have Chris Bryant back, which he's been awful for a while, but there is at least a name that you could like in the lineup. Profar's cheap leading off. You got CJ Cron back as well. So this lineup is getting deeper. It was pretty tough for a while to name anybody you wanted the roster. 1 through 6, they actually have some competent bats now. And then you have a cheap Tovar at shortstop as well.
Real quick, shout out to S&P 1993. I assume born in 1993, so I got like 6 years on you. But he said, or when you had to watch the local news waiting to see whether you had a delay or snow cancellation. Yeah, that just brought back some real nostalgia, sitting in front of the TV and waiting for my district to come up.
You wake up like an hour before you normally would because like you want to find out if you have school. You watch
all white outside too,
but then you don't have a delay, and now you're just up for no reason and you're pissed off, or you don't have a delay and you still have.
Dude, it was the best when you did have like fully off.
That feeling when as soon as you see it across the like your county across the bottom.
Oh, it's the best. And then you hit all your boys up on the phone with the cord on the wall.
Oh yeah, yep. Yeah, or AIM, depending what year it was.
Yeah. I tell you what, man. I do believe this, and maybe this is just, my own personal bias. Growing up when I grew up, childhood was the shit.
I think about it now, and I'm like, I can't, like, current me would have been miserable, I think. Just like
But that's why it's great, though.
Right. But like, we had just enough technology.
Yep.
And not too much of it.
Exactly. And we grew up, like, for me, I what am I, 3 years older than you? But it was like we didn't have any, like, I had Sega or like Super Nintendo maybe when I was 7 or 8. But even then, it wasn't like you didn't live on video games. Life was so balanced back then.
Right. Like you would play, like I can remember going to friends' houses and playing video games, but like 80% of what I remember doing with friends is just going outside and playing football or basketball or
the best.
Yeah.
The best. Manhunt. Oh, dude, I miss it. Anyway, let's talk about New York and St. Louis here. New York Yankees minus 105 on the road, 9.5 run total. I'll throw this over to you, Luis Severino, Matthew Liberatore. What do you make of this pitching matchup? And then we can dive straight into bats here. Curious on your St. Louis takes today.
Yeah, so this is another game where we do have some weather concerns. Again, if I had to make a decision right now, I would play it, but keep an eye on it. Pitching doesn't look particularly promising. Liberatore was a relatively highly thought of prospect, hasn't put it together yet in the majors. The Yankees lineup is watered down still with no Judge and just general old people, but 16% strikeout percentage this year, 15.8 to righties, 16.7 to lefties, 252 expected ISO allowed to righties. Just not somebody I'm really looking to get to. Severino on the other side, obviously at times in his career has been very good, has a lot of talent. He has struggled this year at pretty much everything. He's only striking out 19.5% of hitters. He has an xFIP north of 5. He's allowed 2 home runs per 9 innings. You're facing a Cardinals team that has plenty of power in the lineup. Righties have a 243 expected ISO against Severino. Lefties at 220. It's really, really hard to make a strong case for either of these guys.
Yeah, and with I guess the thing with the St. Louis bats today, because only pulling 1% ownership, 0.7% top value percentage in our top stack tool. So that clearly doesn't bode well for them as far as pricing goes. But yeah, I mean they're pretty expensive at the top. Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado, Gorman, a lot of these guys are going to cost you. But Severino hasn't made many starts. he's allowed 3 home runs in 2 of them already. Maybe he's figured something out. Looks like he's settled down a little bit recently. But what do you think of St. Louis? Is there any way we can get there at those price points on a 12-game slate, or should we just fade this spot on both sides?
No, I mean, I think that you can. They have plenty of power in their lineup, and there are some spots you can offset salary. Goldschmidt's expensive at 5,700, Arenado at 53. Nobody else is more than Gorman at 4,600, but you also have Jordan Walker at 3,200 who has power upside. Paul DeJong, 3,500, has some power upside. Dylan Carlson's only 2,600. So this is a team that has a 5-man stack. You can certainly make it work. And I do like the power that they have here so far this season against right-handed pitching. 161 expected ISO for Donovan, 187 for Nootbaar. Donovan, not in the lineup, Nootbaar is, so ignore the Donovan part, but 187 for Nootbaar, 277 for Goldschmidt, 232 for Gorman, only 163 for Arenado. I assume that turns around sooner than later. 178 for Contreras, 163 for Walker, 195 for DeJong, 168 for Carlson. Like, these guys all have enough power that you can make some pretty high upside Cardinals teams.
Any interest in Yankee bats today?
Stanton in particular. Torres looks pretty good. It's a cheap team, so they are getting some ownership. We have them second in stack score because they have a 10% chance of being the top value stack. It's just so hard to, like, it's kind of the inverse of the Cardinals. Like, I just named almost every hitter in the lineup saying, they have legitimate home run power. With the Yankees, you're kind of just like, all right, well, I'm happy to get to Stanton. I'm happy to get to Torres. LeMahieu, Bader, Donaldson are there. And then everything else is just like, I don't know. Like, obviously you can play them, but it's like there's nothing positive I can say about anything below Donaldson in this lineup.
3 games to go. Then you got live before lock coming up next. Neil and Greg, Jordan. Neil and Greg. Neil Orfield, Greg Ehrenberg taking you up till first pitch. Doug Chapp said, who also drank from a hose? Who didn't drink from a hose, dude? Yeah. That delicious metallic tasting water. Be honest, man. We outside playing in the summer. Cold hose water was the best source of water in the world.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Without a doubt.
It was so good. I miss it. Like, I wouldn't do it now because I understand that you shouldn't drink hose water.
Right.
But I wish I could go back to that.
I did it once. And I didn't realize that my dad had hooked Miracle Grow up to it.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Dude. I was like, this water tastes really bad.
Wait, are you serious?
Yes, I'm serious.
Holy
it obviously didn't really have it doesn't work on humans, but yeah.
No, it made you a husky. It grew you this way.
Right. Yeah.
Oh shit. That's crazy though. Yeah, at least it wasn't like a weed killer.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, I remember like my mom having to figure out if I had poisoned myself or not when I came inside and said the water tasted bad.
Yeah. At least it wasn't what is it? Monsanto's Roundup.
Oh, yeah.
All
yeah.
those commercials. It's
yeah.
Like, if you have some small cell lymph, I don't know. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Though. Yeah.
Man, my dad was big on the Roundup, like had just tons of Roundup in the garage. Died of cancer too.
Who knows?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Who knows? But anyway, 3 games, just trying to bring the mood up a little bit here. Let's talk about the final 3 games. Arizona and LA, 9.5 run total. Arizona plus 135 on the road here. Tommy Henry, the lefty, Griffin Canning on the other side of this one, going for the Angels. Do you like either guys? And like I said, we're running short, so I can toss this over to you. But what are your thoughts here on these 2 arms? I feel like we talked about almost all of the high-owned pitchers except Griffin Canning and maybe Bryce Miller.
Yeah, Canning's another one. I think he's one of the better pitching plays today. I think you can certainly make the case that somebody like Bobby Miller, if the weather cooperates, of course, isn't getting enough ownership relative to Canning. But Canning's a solid enough pitcher. 3.99 xFIP, 22.9% K percentage, which is good for this slate. It's a tough matchup with Arizona, but it's unlikely Corbin Carroll plays today. He left yesterday's game early after injuring himself on a swing in the 5th inning. So I'm assuming he's not going to be playing today. That's going to make things look a bit better. The Diamondbacks did also just send 2 guys down, Pavin Smith being one of them. So don't know what the lineup's going to look like, but assuming, especially if there's no Corbin Carroll, it's pretty watered down. That's a really, really big piece of why Arizona is so good overall. So it's still not a safe spot. It's a good hitter's park. It is still an offense that has some good hitters in it, but assuming Carroll's not in there, it is a much better spot than normal. 4.2 implied run total is nothing crazy. So at 8,300, Canning looks good. I think it's tough to get the Henry on the other side. Just not a very good pitcher. Very dangerous matchup against the Angels.
Do you have any interest in the Angels today going up against the lefty? 3%, 3.6% aggregate stack ownership, 5.7 top stack probability. So there is some positive leverage in this stack right now.
Yeah, I like the Angels a lot here. The highest owned projected hitter on this team is Taylor Ward at 6% at 4,300. Ohtani also at 6% at 6,500. Drury pulling 5%, Trout pulling 5%, Renfroe at 3%. There's a lot of power on this team going up against Henry, who doesn't miss a lot of bats. Gives up power, nothing crazy, but 177 expected ISO to righties, 137 to lefties. But chances are the only lefty in the lineup will be Ohtani, and that doesn't count as a 137 ISO against lefties. He's too good. So I do really like the Angels. I really like the lack of ownership coming in here, and it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, where and they're not even that expensive outside of Ohtani and Trout. But it goes back to what I was saying earlier, where the Tigers project better, especially from a point per dollar standpoint. They have a little bit higher implied run total, but when things go well for the Angels, they just look so much better than when things go well for the Tigers, 90% of the time.
What was your first car
that I bought, or that I was regularly drove?
Like your car, your first car?
The same one I have now.
Really?
Yeah. I bought the Mustang when I was 19.
That's crazy. You
Yeah.
still have that? Oh, I know you still have it, but so the first car that you personally have owned is the same car that you have right now.
Yeah.
Wow.
It is 22 years old. I've had it for 14.
Wait, 20? I thought you said 19 years old.
It's a 2001 car. I bought it in 2009.
Oh, okay. Okay. 14 years, huh? How many miles on it?
130,000.
Still runs? Okay.
Yeah. I drive it once a month. It sits in the garage.
What kind of, is it, what kind of, is it a 5.0 or what?
No, it's the shittiest Mustang you can get. I didn't have money to pay insurance as a 19-year-old on anything beyond your base, V6 shittiest Mustang you can have.
I knew you had it. I just didn't know that was that you had it for that long, but you also never drive. No,
it sits in a parking garage. If I'm going to my mom's, I'll drive it. And other than that, I'm either Ubering or walking.
Mine was a Honda Prelude SI 1992, and it had this futuristic dash. It was awesome. Got it for $5,000 in New Jersey. I want to get another one. Two games to go here. Oh, before we do, you guys should all immediately pull out your phones, go to the Sleeper app, and get 100% first match deposit bonus up to $100 and start playing Sleeper picks. It's new and it's sick. And unlike all of the other pick'em sites, you can actually go ahead and add certain props like home runs, right? And stolen bases and triples and doubles to your cards. These other pick'em sites don't offer that. The reason Sleeper can do it, they got dynamic payouts, which is a really cool feature, dynamic pricing. So what they do is they just attach a multiplier to each side of the prop. So the over and the under. So if it's like a Bryce Harper home run, you could get a 4x multiplier on over half a home run. And then of course, like a very low multiplier, like 1.1 or 1.07 or whatever on the under. So you're playing it that way. So you can now actually take like traditional props that you'd see on sports books with long odds and play them in your cards at Sleeper. They have 100x payouts right now. You can play as low as $1 per card as well. And you're getting $100 first match deposit bonus up to $100. The way I see it, if you're on like a Prize Picks or an Underdog, take advantage of every single sign-up promotion that you get because it's free money. If you're already playing on pick'em sites, take advantage of free money 100% of the time. Here, you deposit 100, you now have 200. You wanted to play 5 cards, say, for 20 bucks. You can play 10 of them now. You're getting free money. It's not a drip bonus. It's 100 turns into 200 in your account like that. And the dynamic pricing makes it sweet. Plus, shop around every day. If you're now like Prize Picks, Underdog, Sleeper, all of them, then when one of them has a free square or a crazy discounted square or prop or a great promotion, you don't have to be like, oh, I'm not over there. I got to play here. You can play just like shop around just as you would with sports books. You should be running a sleeper. Seriously, checking it out. Link in the description and in chat, though. It's in app form. Really smooth. Great experience over there. I actually just did a review on it yesterday. But yeah, go get $100 for free when you sign up. Deposit 100 or deposit 20 and get 20 for free. 100% match up to $100. Start playing up to 100% pay, 100x payouts there as well. Very cool format. All right, let's wrap this up with the final two games, Adam. What do you have as far as this next one goes? Schultz looks like he's going to be the probable or the long reliever here against Medina. Luis Medina had just been absolute dog shit early on, and now, you know, he hasn't been good, but he's at least somewhat settled down from a power perspective recently. Only 1 home run allowed over his last 5 starts. You want to get to any pitching here, or should we go straight to bats?
Yeah, so a couple of things here. One, for Medina sucks, but you can play him just because of the way the slate is. It's no worse of a play than Carlos Carrasco, really.
Real cheap,
Yeah, good park. Still like a 5 implied run total for the White Sox. I was getting more Carrasco earlier in the sim, but I was also over the field on Medina. One thing, though, with Banks, I'm not really sure I buy this Jesse Schultz long relief thing. Banks has thrown 63 pitches each of his last 2 times out. The last time, I think it was the last time, maybe it was 2 times ago, that Schultz looked like the long reliever. He finally came in to pitch an inning in like the 7th or something. So, one, I think you could roll the dice on Banks kind of in the same way that you did with Wynn yesterday, where Banks actually projects as a middle of the road major leaguer in terms of strikeout percentage and xFIP. I don't think he's a great player or anything, but if you wanted to just punt, like he's probably, if that $1,000 between him and Marsh doesn't change anything, he's probably the guy that you just go to and say, like, let's hope to get like 4 innings and 12 points. I don't think you're doing that often, but I just wanted to mention that, like, they have been stretching him out more than he was earlier in the year. So probably getting 60, 65 pitches from him. But, you know, Medina at 5,800 was the guy that was actually showing up for me a decent amount in the Sims.
All right. Bats here against Medina or against whoever gets run out there as long relief for the White Sox?
Yeah, I mean, the park sucks, so I'm not too interested here. Luis Robert obviously is always going to look good. He's having a great year for Chicago. Overall, they've underperformed, but he hasn't been the reason. 250 expected ISO allowed to righties, 155 to lefties for Medina. There's not really any lefties with power in this lineup. You'll probably have Grandal and Sheets. Benintendi doesn't have power, but he is left-handed. But looking at, you know, Robert in particular, Jimenez, Vaughn, Berger, that's where I would go. But this park just does so much to kill power.
100 million for Draymond Green
with
the Pistons.
Are you making that up?
Yeah, he's Warriors.
Okay.
Last game.
The Pistons just traded for Joe Harris too, so I thought maybe they were doing that weird thing again where they just like start adding random role players like they think they're going to compete.
Yeah, it's just a team of role players that are getting paid exorbitant amounts of money.
And then they're like, wait, why do we have Jerry McGrant? That's our number 1 scorer.
Tampa minus 130 on the money line, 7.5 run total, lowest on the slate by a full run, by the way. Again, it's in Seattle too, so that makes some sense. McClanahan and Bryce Miller. The pitching options on this one, just looking at both of these guys, McClanahan, 26% ownership, Bryce Miller getting 14% ownership. I guess we can start out on the Tampa side. Are you willing to pay that $11K price point on McClanahan at 26% ownership?
Yeah, so I was coming in under the field on him in the Sims. That just has to do with salary, and that's the kind of thing that certainly could look different. Once the slate starts, we have lineups. We know where we can get hitter value. But the only real issue with him is that he's $11,000. But he's the closest thing on this slate to like a non-concern. 3rd best strikeout percentage in a pitcher's park, facing a team that has a lot of strikeouts in their lineup. The Mariners do also have power, but this park helps to mitigate that. 28% strikeout percentage against right-handed hitters for McClanahan this year. 302 expected WOBA. You have 2 lefties in the lineup, Crawford leading off, Kelnick hitting 8th. It's a good spot for McClanahan as long as you can find the salary. On the other side, it's another one of these weird spots where Bryce Miller is going to get some ownership, and he deserves it. He's projected for 14% ownership, 12% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. Normally, you're just not paying $9,200 for a guy, one, that strikes out, 22-ish% of hitters, but also for a guy that is facing Tampa Bay. But here you're getting a good pitcher's park, a good enough pitcher, 4.07 xFIP through his first 10 major league, 4.13 xFIP through his first 10 major league starts. Was looking at the wrong Miller. Basically a 4 flat implied run total for Tampa. Bryce Miller looks fine. He's getting a little bit less ownership than John Gray, who projects similarly at a similar price point. So pitching here is pretty much what I'm interested in, even though it is two offenses that certainly can do damage.
Both teams have the lowest stack ownership on the slate. Seattle and Tampa, 0.6 and 0.8% respectively. Yeah,
deservedly so. I mean, you can make the case for any of these teams where it's like, well, they have the talent to do well. But on a slate like this, the problem is you can make that case for a lot of teams, and a lot of those teams are going to be in much better spots. So it's really, it's tough to get enough lineups in to where you're getting down to Tampa Bay and Seattle.
Appreciate you guys watching. As always, follow Adam at Ship My Money DFS, me _D. Links to everything in the description. Want 50% off whatever tools, including the MLB lineup generator for less than $450. Or you want to sign up on Sleeper because you're smart and you want to get 100% deposit bonus up to $100. And last thing, make sure you're rocking the Stochastic Avatar, stochastic.com/avatar. So when you do finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, even if it's in a nickel contest, it doesn't matter, and you win $40, you're still getting the free month of Stochastic Plus Platinum, $120 value, and you're getting inducted into the Hall of Fame. We do it every single Monday, and we run it throughout the week. You want to be a part of that, stochastic.com/avatar. Have a great weekend, guys. Catch you back here on Monday. Greg Neal coming up, taking you to first pitch on Live Before Lock. Peace.
Bruce Brown to the Pacers.
Well, it's that time of week again, and we've got some monster new inductees into the Stochastic Hall of Fame. A huge week across the board, and we're going to go over all of them. And all you got to do to get involved, download that Stochastic Avatar. It's stochastic.com/avatar. Tweet your wins at Stochastic HOF when you finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, and get a free month of Stochastic Plus Platinum. $120 value, more than anything, really. Crowning achievement of your life. Get inducted right here into the Hall of Fame. We do a new one every single Monday, and let's get it started with a huge win from Lyle Peel. Took this down the lineup. Let me rephrase how he wanted to say it. Took this down with the lineup generator. Love to see it. $4.48 for the first week, by the way. First takedown ever. LP Focus, $10,000 in the Mighty Micro Mini Max. Congratulations, Lyle. That's awesome, especially seeing that you did it with the lineup generator. And this made me even more excited. Mitchell Kemp, literally my first day with the Stochastic MLB Sims tool. See, I mean, we got tools for everybody. Hit my biggest MLB DFS hit. Great product, already paying off. Thanks for the great content. Congrats, Mitchell. And notice, right under Lyle, right under LP Focus in that same contest for a sweet $5,000. And Ryan Carter took down the relay throw tonight, single bullet. Y'all are the best site out there, in my opinion. $50,000 for Letus Brutalis, single entry into the relay throw. Barry Watts, second week using the Sims tool. First 5-figure win, $10,000 in the 80K ball four. Congrats, man. That's awesome. $10,500, second place to Barry Watts. And Adam Scherer back on the board, baby. MLB is for masochists. Golf is easy. $750 in the $20,000 in the showdown. Round 1, I believe, for Adam. $20,000 to our boy Ship My Money. And Miami Heat, 4 more till history. Well, that name's got to be changed, huh? But anyway, Bama Jones, congrats, man. Had a little stat correction. First place, $1,200 in the Wednesday MLB Bunt single entry contest. Big win there. And Greg Ehrenberg, our own Greg Ehrenberg, lost out on a chance for first when the Angels pinch hit for Trout, but it was still a solid night with some help from, believe it or not, the MLB Sims tool. It's stochastic.com. $5,000 for our boy Greg. And Keith, thanks again for the awesome tools. $300. Second place in the 6K solo shot. Congrats, Keith. XFL expert, or El Cuatro Loco 88 UFC 10K flying knee, takes home $1,000 and says, if I do nothing else in DFS, I can at least say I won a contest that had Alex Baker and Greg Ehrenberg. Next up, we got our boy David. Thank you, EMAC, for your top plays article. 50 cents in the 1,500. That article is free, by the way, on the site every single day. Congratulations, David Colasanto. And then 2 more. MF Chooch 724 just says his name with an exclamation point. $1,500, little NASCAR action here. Congrats to you. And Jason Sweden, 25 cents in the 42.50. Thanks for the help and all you guys do. Cheers in the MLB Showdown 2K quarter jukebox. Remember, want to get up on the board, get your free month of Stochastic Plus Platinum, get inducted in the Hall of Fame by yours truly right here. Download the avatar at stochastic.com/avatar. Tweet your wins at Stochastic HOF when you finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more. And join us right here in the Stochastic Hall of Fame. See you back here for the next one.
Making sure I didn't miss it. What is happening, everybody, and welcome to the final MLB Live Before Lock of the week to bring us into the weekend. Neil Orfield and myself breaking down a big baseball slate, 13 games. We got a Coors Field game. We got some shitty pitchers to talk about. We're going to be covering it all here. We're sponsored by Sleeper, and if you guys haven't signed up at Sleeper, here's why you should do it. You're going to get up to a $100 bonus on your first deposit when you sign up using the link below. And even though there aren't any of them today, we have seen a ton of free squares available over at Sleeper. You don't get access to anywhere else. Like some of them over the course of the last few days, we had Darren Nola over 0.5 strikeouts. There was a Garrett Cole over 2.5 outs or 3.5 outs. I forget exactly what the number is, but pretty frequently you're going to see basically free money offers from Sleeper. So make sure you're taking advantage of those and sign up by using the link that we have below. And then also, if you guys haven't done yet, like this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel as Neil and I start to break down the slate. Neil, how did softball go last night?
Thank you for asking, Greg. We did get the win once again. I know we didn't really talk about it last week, but we got the big win last week. We got another win this week, 2 weeks in a row of single-digit runs for the opposing team too. Like this, I'm just an ace at this point.
So you only gave up 9 runs or something last night?
I think I gave up 7 last night. I think I gave up 9 last week.
Okay. All right. Improvements. You're looking pretty good over there. And at the plate, 2 for 4 with 2 singles?
1 for 4 with 1 single. Sadly,
okay.
I did not get my double-digit hitting streak. I didn't keep it going.
So only 1 for 4. So who are the standout performers on the softball squad then?
I mean, we've got a guy, Joe, who plays shortstop for us, who is significantly better than everybody else, like both in the field and at the plate. He actually had a bases loaded double play where he had dove into the outfield to grab the ball and then turned and got the out at second as well. So it was pretty incredible play. My friend Dave got a home run for the first time in about 10 years, I think. We have a lot of strong players at this point.
Is there a home run wall, or is it just if you hit the ball over
There's
some
not.
guy's head and you keep running?
Yep. So we used to play at a different field that did have home run walls, and it was fun. It's the fields were way better, and they would never get rained out, that kind of stuff. We play on kind of crappy fields by a public lake where people swim and stuff. But it's a more fun atmosphere where we are now. There's a restaurant right there. It's kind of a cool place to play.
Yeah, restaurants. That's nothing available near me at all. Restaurants. I was talking with Jordan about this before before the show started, both you and Jordan were taking bathroom breaks to get ready for the show, which I'm jealous of, because there is no running water in my town right now. There was a pipe main broke on the highway. The entire highway is flooded. So the highway is shut down, and there's no water in half of my county. My town doesn't have water. The surrounding towns don't have water. I can't go to the bathroom in my house, can't brush my teeth, can't shower, can't drink water.
Are you just holding it?
I just go shit in the bushes and pee in the bushes.
That makes sense.
Yeah. You know, Neighbors, of course, not on my side of the bucket,
obviously
over there. So you got to hope nobody sees or anything, but I don't want that on my yard. I don't want that in my backyard. So we've got a solution for it, but I am really hoping that we get this back up and going soon, because I'm a thirsty boy. I like my water, and every once in a while I like to shit inside as well.
How long has it been out?
To my knowledge, so I don't know exactly, because I was on meetings and stuff all day. Right. We had the big OKR meeting. We come up with company goals for the next quarter and whatnot. When I was done, I went to go wash my hands and just the sink wouldn't turn on. So it's probably been like 3 hours or something like that. But
you have like bottles of water or something? Like I would go out and get bottles of water. I don't think I could go hours without water. I hydrate frequently, so couldn't do it.
I have a lot of sugar-free sports drinks. I have I have Gatorade Zeros, and I have Body Armors with no sugar.
Obi-Wan asking no water, which are you familiar with water ice? It's like water ice. So it's like
when you put water in the freezer for a while and it gets hard.
Right. So that's the stupid. So Pennsylvania, do we have anybody from Pennsylvania? There's a place called Rita's, which opened up in Minnesota. And like half of my good friends now are actually from Pennsylvania. Like I just happen to be in the same law school section as several people from Pennsylvania. We get this place called Rita's Water Ice, but like they pronounce it water ice. So like, oh, we're going to go get some water ice. And I'm like, water ice? Like, what the fuck does that mean? It's like flavored. It's just like a slushy or something. I'm probably not describing. I think that's probably the best description. Is
Italian
essentially
ices.
Yeah, it's like the exact same thing, but for some reason they call it water ice in Pennsylvania. Obi-Wan knows.
I not something I have access to right here. Like I said, I've got sports drinks. Like I didn't prepare for the water to go out. I'm not one of those doomsdayers. So this is what I've got on hand, and I do have my water bottle, which I've not drank from since, because I had it filled up from earlier in the day. And in case of emergency, leaving it here in case I get really thirsty, just in case. But I'm going to try not to drink for it in the meantime. Also, like I said, we've got a baseball slate to talk about. If you guys have any questions for us, leave us a super chat. And then also, if you're in our Discord channel, one of the perks of being a Stochastic Plus Platinum member is you get access to not only all the tools and data we have at stochastic.com, but you're in our Discord channel where you could message me and ask questions whenever it is that you want. So any questions you have, at me over the course of the show, and we could answer those. By the way, Jordan, who's saying drink out of the toilet, Greg, grow up. I can't. There's no water, Jordan. I would. Is that some
still sitting there?
No. You only get one flush. Because what happens is, because I've used the toilet since then. Yeah. You get one flush. You get one.
Oh, flush. Chris is in here. Chris is in chat. Chris Karen Carone. I change the way I pronounce it every day.
Chris, first time tuning in for a bit. Greg, house issues. Some things don't change. No, Chris, they don't. It's the same nonsense as usual. Adam not showing up to all the shows. My house doesn't work. Nothing's changed. Nothing's changed. Happy to see you, Chris. I'll probably DM you on Twitter after this, because we haven't really caught up in a minute. But Neil, some baseball to talk about, and the pitching options are largely trash today. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that. Yeah, it's not the strongest pitching slate.
Which I think we kind of recognized when you and I were doing the So Rare show.
That's true.
Yesterday. I think we kind of should have put 2 and 2 together at that point. Like, we're going to have some shitty pitching slates upcoming, because we were really struggling to find the top pitchers. We had identified Shane McClanahan yesterday as somebody that we might potentially want to get to. And he is the pay up option of the slate. He is 11,000 on DraftKings. Over on FanDuel, we got Shane McClanahan also at 11,000. Projected for 11% ownership on FanDuel, 24% ownership on DraftKings. We don't have a lot of aces on the slate, Neil. What are you going to be doing with the one standout top-end pitcher in Shane McClanahan relative to his ownership?
Yeah, I think I'm going to actually, let me check, because I have actually run some sims already today, so I can actually answer with knowledge. I did just notice the Viking Nomad asked, who the fuck is Chris? And Chris immediately timed him out, which I appreciate. All right.
Chris flexing his wrench abilities, even though he is, so Chris was the head of production here and took a radio job, which seems like a really cool gig. I'm curious to see how it's going, Chris. But we've left him with his wrench abilities, and yeah, he's still able to mute people in chat apparently.
And he's power hungry. Just gonna right away give you a timeout. So I'm looking at my sims right now. I have 22% Shane McClanahan, so I am right in line with the field.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
I like that. Like that's how he looks in the tools too. He looks like very neutral. I'm happy with it.
So by the way, I'm looking at my lineups because I had them all built out, all run through our sims before the show started. And I have 22% of Shane McClanahan almost directly in line with the field. We have a project for 23.7% ownership. And, you know, the matchup isn't ideal against the Seattle Mariners. He's on the road. He's costly. But I do think all of the ownership is more or less warranted. Like you said, the top pitchers tool really does bear that out. 23.7% ownership at a 21.3% chance being one of the top 2 pitchers on the slate. You know, what else is there really to say here? He's appropriately owned. It's not the best matchup in the world, but there aren't a lot of other pitching options that we could really feel great about getting to overall on the slate. It's really spread out at pitcher, right? The most rostered pitch we have the entire night is John Gray at 26%. He's in a brutal matchup against the Houston Astros. So we'll talk a little bit more about him. But in terms of pay up options, is there anybody you see picking up less ownership than McClanahan that stands out to you as a pivot on the high end?
Man, it's a tough pitching slate. Like every single name I'm looking at, I'm like, not really. There's nobody that I'm trying to jam into my lineups on the high end. I do think, and Adam was talking about it a little bit on the last show, James Paxton at 3% ownership is intriguing. I still don't know. I'm guessing I did not get to any James Paxton. You know, it's somebody that I would consider if I were using my usual process, maybe giving him a little bit of a boost. John Gray against Houston is not, maybe Freddie Peralta, I guess, because he's got the best matchup of the group against Pittsburgh. No, like there's nobody that I want to be drastically above the field among the pay up options. They're all, if I end up even with the field here and just trying to get different with bats, I think that's probably going to be my approach for the most part. How about you? Are you taking any stands with the high end pitchers?
Not the high end. So we'll talk through some of the cheap pitchers. I'm really mixing and matching a lot of just garbage cheap pitchers today. And I kind of think that's the best way to go for a couple of reasons. Number one, when I'm running my lineups using the sorting process in our Sims tool, that is what a lot of the top lineups are projecting out for me. Is just guys with, you know, like Luis Medina showing up in some lineups and stuff like that. Just really cheap pitchers that have some strikeout ability popping up in lineups. And I just don't mind mixing and matching some of those types of guys like Osvaldo Bido, Luis Medina, just from a standpoint of, if I don't like the high end pitchers all that well, you know, maybe a couple of these pitchers I could mix and match combinations, get, you know, like 12 to 15 fantasy points out of some of them. I don't think pitching is going to win the slate for anybody today. I do think it's going to ruin a lot of lineups, if that makes sense.
Yeah, agreed. And I'm with you. So I'm also getting to a lot of, in particular, Luis Medina, who I think I'm going to negatively boost a little bit. I currently have 52% there. So I'm like, I don't really want to have Medina in 52% of my lineup. So I think I'm going to negative boost him a little bit, probably negative boost some of my Detroit as well. We haven't gotten to the bats yet, but yeah, I am also getting to a good amount of Blanco as well. Like, so I'm kind of the same way. Like, I don't have a ton of any of the high end pitchers. I have a bunch of bits and pieces of the lower end pitchers, and then just a ton of Medina in particular.
Yeah, you had mentioned before James Paxton. He is the one that I am most overweight to on the high end, but I mean, he's projected for 3% ownership and he's in 10% of my lineups right now.
Right.
So, you know, what is that really saying? I'm overweight to him, right? I like him to play well, particularly with an offense I have that also performs well. And I've got a pretty contrarian looking lineup there. James Paxton, he's shown some high upside this year. You know, he's gotten back to the form that he was in. I'm trying to remember the last year it was prior to this one where Paxton actually had like a good season where he remained fairly healthy. I'll pull up his FanGraphs page right now. I want to say it's been like 6-7 years, something like that at that point, since Paxton's been decent, and not quite that long, but 2019, his first year with the Yankees, was the last time Paxton was actually decent. He had a 3.82 ERA this year. That year, 3.69 expected ERA. The key here, though, is just he's on the mound. He's generating strikeouts. He's throwing hard. He has the 3.19 ERA, 3.36 expected ERA. I think at this point, he's going to perform pretty well as long as he's healthy. He's probably not going to be healthy at the end of the year. He is right now. He's 3% owned. That's enough for me to get overweight to the field on him, but not any kind of real crazy stand. It's not like I'm getting to, 20 or 30% of Paxton. It's closer to 10%, but I do feel pretty good about that. As far as the other pitchers on the high end here that are picking up some ownership, Neil, we've got Pablo Lopez for 18.4%. We've got Freddie Peralta, 21.2%. John Gray, 26%. So of these other pitchers who are, in the 9K range, they're picking up some ownership, but aren't quite on the tier of McClanahan in terms of pricing or in terms of expected production. Let's do a fuck, marry, kill. Pablo Lopez, Freddie Peralta, John Gray. However you want to explain this. You have to fornicate with one, you have to marry one, and kill one. What are you doing with this trio of popular pitchers?
All right, I'm going to. No, I think I'm gonna fuck Freddie Peralta, marry Pablo Lopez, kill John Gray. John Gray has the worst matchup. He's the cheapest of the bunch, but just because of the matchup, he's also the highest owned. Like, we're getting 26% ownership on John Gray, 13% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. So I think that he's the easy one for me to kill. So it's going to be kill John Gray. I think I'm marrying Pablo Lopez, getting just 18% ownership. So he has the lowest ownership of the trio with the highest odds of being a top 2 pitcher. So I think I marry Pablo Lopez, and then I'm going to fuck Freddie Peralta. 21% projected ownership, 14% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. Not a great matchup. Freddie Peralta is playing Pittsburgh, so he does have the better matchup there, but getting, more ownership than Pablo Lopez, lower odds of being a top 2 pitcher. So yeah, I think that's going to be my order. How about you? How are you going to do the FMK?
All right. So first of all, my job here is done. Jordan, I am going to need you to isolate the clip where just very matter of fact, Neil says, so I'm going to fuck Freddie Peralta. I would like that isolated, and I would like that clipped for social media. All right. So that was the overall main purpose of this segment.
Well done.
That. As for my answer, I am going to go with. So I guess we'll do the kill is the fade, right? And that's John Gray for me. He is a tough match. He's also projected for a bunch of ownership here. 26%. He's the single most popular pitcher of the entire night. We're killing John Gray, offing him, off with his head, right? We're beheading him. So we've beheaded John Gray. Now we have to figure out what we're doing between Freddie Peralta and Pablo Lopez. Who am I going to have dirty sex with? And who's going to be my loving partner for today? I view Pablo Lopez as being the safest option here. So let's marry Pablo Lopez. Did we give the same answers, by the way?
We did. We gave the exact same answers.
Oh
and it was the same kind of explanation too. Like, it's an easy kill with John Gray. And then I think we're both marrying Pablo fucking Freddie.
It's going to be a dirty threesome then, isn't
it?
It
is. It is going to be very dirty.
Yeah, so Freddie Peralta, a lot of strikeout upside with him. He has been wildly inconsistent this year. So Freddie Peralta, this just kind of exemplifies it too. If you look at his last 4 games that we have here, look at the last 5 games, looking at his box scores in Fantasy Cruncher, 10 fantasy points, 25, 10, 22, 9. The guy's all over the place, but that upside is kind of something that we do like to see for fantasy purposes. So yeah, Freddie Peralta, bend over backwards for me, baby. We got a fun night ahead of us. So looking at those pitchers, I think that they're kind of in a tier of their own. And then if we start to dig into the 8K range, Griffin Canning is pretty popular. He's the only other pitcher that we've not yet talked about today that's projected for north of 20% ownership. So 21% ownership going to Griffin Canning at home against the Arizona Diamondbacks. This is another pitcher that I am almost right in line with the field with. Griffin Canning, what are you doing with him? Overweight, underweight, or about at the field?
So I have 17%. So I am actually underweight to the field. I wouldn't mind being overweight to the field to Griffin Canning either. I'm happy. I'm not going to change anything because I'm at 17%. Like, I'm not going to give him some kind of a boost. But I also, like, if I had my preference, like if I were going to go back and do something, I would give him a little. I like Griffin Canning against this watered down Arizona lineup. It's a good spot. Looking at the top pitchers tool, we have him a little bit overowned. So I guess I'm okay with being at 17%. We're projecting for 21% ownership, 11% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. I think the upside is there, given that he's facing a watered down Arizona lineup. We don't really know who's going to be in the lineup for Arizona, but it seems like a nice spot for him. But yeah, I'm a little bit underweight to the field. I guess I think I'm okay with that. 17% seems fine to me. What are you doing with Canning?
Yeah, Griffin Canning is, it's funny. So he's currently my second most rostered pitcher on the slate. And that means I have him in 22% of my lineups. I'm so spread out at pitcher today. And it's really hard to that's Griffin Canning, 22%, Shane McClanahan, 22%. I'm just mixing and matching a pitcher. It's hard to find anybody to be super confident in. We'll talk about some of the dart throwers that we're going to take a chance on as far as the cheap pitchers go. But the other option here that we should talk about in the mid-range is Dean Kremer, because Dean Kremer is projected for just under 20% ownership. And I see we've got Sunflower in here who says that he is on Kremer hard, which, considering the context of our other conversation, I'd say watch the phrasing a little bit here. But I'm underweight to Griffin Canning. And a couple of reasons. Number one is the ownership fairly high, 18%. We've got him with a less than 10% chance to be one of the top 2 scoring pitchers of the day. And I also just don't buy into Dean Kremer as a high-end starting pitcher, which at least to this point this year, he's been delivering okay results, but it really does seem like he's heading for aggression. So the matchup against your Minnesota Twins is a pretty good one on paper, right? Because your Twins are terrible. I'm sorry to tell you, the offense is absolute dog shit.
We got Joey Gallo in the 9-hole. How can you call that a terrible offense?
Because if you throw Joey Gallo 3 breaking balls in the dirt in a row, that is 3 swing and misses in a row for Joey Gallo.
Fair. All right. That's fair.
Dean Kremer, though. So people are rostering Dean Kremer because, number one, he's been okay this year with a 4.5 ERA, and he's a great matchup against the Minnesota Twins. But underlying numbers for Dean Kremer, despite a 4.5 ERA, he's a 5.73 expected ERA. There is big time regression coming for Dean Kremer, in my opinion. And then also the strikeout stuff, okay at 20.6% when you consider that he's a good matchup against the Minnesota Twins. But this is just not the kind of type of pitcher that I like to target. Now, sometimes if I'm looking at the numbers, just being like, hey, this pitcher's dog shit, they're popular in a good matchup, and I fade them, it could go the way of Domingo Germán the other day, where all of a sudden I'm sitting here with minimal exposure to a pitcher who just pitched a perfect game. But I just don't really like to target popular starting pitchers when I don't think that they're very good, which all the numbers indicate that Dean Kremer is not particularly good. So I hardly have any exposure to him. He's popping up in a couple lineups, nothing really all that significant. Is it the same for you with Dean Kremer?
I have 10% Dean Kremer, so I'm below the field. I'm happy with where I'm at. I'm actually realizing now, I'm like, man, I don't think I got to any of my twin stacks. I actually like the twin stack, so I might actually do something to get more of the opposing offense to get some leverage against Dean Kremer, but 10% seems fine to me.
Also related, Twins Orioles is going to be delayed by inclement weather today. Now, I don't think this is going to have any kind of real threat to cancel the game based on the weather report, but that is information that I think I should bring to you guys also. We have some super chats coming in. So a couple of them here, and then also check the Discord channel to see if we got any questions that are in there. First of all, super chat from our own Jordan Klein, who has been a member here for 27 months. Greg, thoughts on the Jalen Green video? I'm going to need you to expand on that because I do not know what it is you're referencing, Jordan. Come on the air and let us know what it is you are talking about. Nope, you left.
Is it like a Jamal Murray video?
Like you to explain your work. What is the Jalen Green video? I would like. I'm your boss, Jordan, and I am asking you.
It's not safe for work. I can't do it.
But you want me to talk about it, but you can't. I don't know what it is. Oh my god,
man, this is disappointing.
Maybe the worst super chat we've ever got. YouTube chat. Do you guys know about the Jalen Green video?
I'm gonna give Jordan Villalobos a shout out because he said that he won PGA Showdown. He wanted a shout out, so I'm gonna give it to him. Congrats.
All right, I thought he was gonna say that he was involved in the Jalen Green video.
That would have been cool too. That would have been cool.
He was holding the camera, or maybe listen. I'm gonna make some speculations here, right? Because I haven't seen the Jalen Green video. Jordan, it appears, has watched it multiple times at this point, and he's done his research on it. But I'm going to assume our friend in the chat was potentially either holding the camera or loaning out his significant other to Jalen Green. Is that a possibility, Jordan? Oh my God. Little high five Eiffel Tower action. Okay. All right. Boy, some riddles from Jordan. He gives us bits and pieces, but won't give us the entire thing. Some more questions that we have via the super chat here. This one is from Jorge. Jorge Jacomi wants to know, what is our favorite non-cores low-owned stacks and pitchers? Happy you asked, because we're about to talk about some of the cheap pitchers that we like to get to as well. So let's make a list here, Neil, because I don't think that we're going to feel great about any of these cheap pitchers, but who are the 3 dart throws that you're getting the most exposure to as cheap punt pitchers to look at as SP2s?
Yeah, I mean, it's Luis Medina, who I already mentioned. Nice matchup with the White Sox. 20% chance of being a top 2 value pitcher, so point per dollar pitcher. Looks good. Ronald Blanco, I'm getting to a good amount. Don't love the matchup with Texas, but still looks really good in the tools. 5% projected ownership, 15% chance of being a top 2 value pitcher, 9% chance of being a top 2 pitcher overall. And then who else? Let me see if I'm getting to anybody else in any significant amount. What is our salary cutoff, would you say?
Whatever you want to be, I'm just punt pitchers, SP2s, anybody who you'd consider to be like not all that expensive that is popping up in your lineups. Because I don't think there's anybody who can really analyze here and be like, oh, this is the guy who I'm going to just crush with today. It's just like, I'm with you. I'm taking dart throws on Medina. I have dart throws on. Ronel Blanco is in the teens of my lineups. I have him in 18%. Osvaldo Bido, who I don't think Bido is good at all, but he has a little bit of strikeout equity. He throws hard. It's like I have him in 11% of my lineup. So it's like guys like that who it's like I have like 11, 15, 18% of, and just mixing and matching guys like that. My 3 favorite ones are Medina, Blanco, and Bido. So that's kind of the way that I'm asking the question.
Yeah. So we're definitely on the same page as Medina and Blanco. I was trying to, if they qualify, I was thinking either Bido or maybe Luis Severino. I think I also am getting to a decent. I think he's actually my next in terms of my exposure.
Hey, 7,400 for Luis Severino. I think you could also make a case for that just on the standpoint of that. But I have Severino exposure as well, just not quite as much as those other guys. But I mean, splitting hairs, I have 8% of Luis Severino and, it's like 12% of other guys here. But Luis Severino, only $7,400 based on the talent he has. I know he's been terrible this year, but if we don't like any of these cheap pitchers, or at least don't feel confident in them, you're getting the most talent in Luis Severino. If you were to ask me at the end of the year who has the highest upside between Luis Severino, Osvaldo Bido, and Ronel Blanco, I think we'd pretty confidently say it's Severino.
Yep.
Let's see what else we have in the super chats here. Sunflower says Kramer is a long-haired, 6'3", torque-wielding titan of a man. He will get a no-hitter on the Minnesota Twins tonight. Taller pitchers generate more torque.
I'll take that bet. I'm guessing I would bet that he's not going to get a no-hitter tonight against the Twins.
Well, I know Sunflower's picking for his fuck pick, huh?
Yeah, right. He wants to fuck. Who is it that he wants to? Oh, Dean Kramer, right? Dean Kramer. Pretty hard.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think that is what he wants to do.
It sounds like that's what he's saying, right? I mean, look at the words he's using.
He's 6'3", long hair, torque.
By the way, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that.
Torque wielding isn't a thing.
Yeah, I don't know what that means exactly.
Yeah, I don't know what torque wielding is. Also, 6'3". Somebody brought it up in the chat. It's 6'3" is tall, but you wouldn't be like that's a mountain of a man at 6'3". Big. Depends how much he weighs. But 6'3", I don't know if I'd go with a mountain or anything like that. Tight.
Yeah, for a pitcher, like pitchers tend to be pretty tall in general.
Let's go into Discord and see what it is. Oh, I forgot the other part of Jorge's question, right? So we went through the pitchers that we liked, throwing some dart throws on. Those were the lists we gave out right there. Favorite non-Coors low-owned stacks. So if you had to pick one team to stack up today, Neil, that was outside of Coors Field, which team would you pick?
All right, so I almost want to just like go completely against Sunflower here and say my Twins against Dean Kramer, partially for the leverage on Dean Kramer. I actually do think the Twins are an interesting stack today, but probably not my favorite outside of Coors. Maybe Atlanta. Atlanta looks really good in the tools. 5% projected ownership. I mean, the Dodgers look incredible in the tools too, but I'm a little bit more concerned about the weather there. Yeah, I'll go Atlanta. It's in Atlanta against Brian Hoeing. 5% projected ownership, 7% chance of being the top stack overall. Probably Atlanta would be my top pick there. How about you?
So I'm going to answer with what my single entry stack is. And boy, there was a lot of options I could have gone with here. I considered going with the Coors Field game, but ultimately I have landed on the Arizona Diamondbacks as my single entry team. We know the Diamondbacks have been a much better offense than expected this year. But a big thing, too, at least in terms of something like a smaller field or even for larger field tournaments for that matter, you have a good offense going up against a blow-up prone pitcher in Griffin Canning, who, about even with the field on, but it looks like nobody's playing the Arizona Diamondbacks. Only 2% ownership going to the Diamondbacks for the field, and we have them projected for a
4% top
chance
stack
being the
odds.
top scoring team on the slate. So Arizona Diamondbacks are getting a little bit of leverage on them against Griffin Canning and really no ownership. So that's the low owned team that I have the most exposure to. I've got like 8% of the Diamondbacks overall across all my lineups, and only 2% ownership going to them.
My only concern with the Diamondbacks is so we don't know who's going to be playing for the Diamondbacks today. Corbin Carroll being out certainly hurts. It's definitely low ownership for the Diamondbacks. So I'm not saying that it's wrong. It's just it's so hard to. I don't know who I would even project to be in their starting lineup.
All right. Anything else you want to talk about at pitcher
now? I feel like we covered all of the pitchers that I have any significant exposure to. So, I don't really think so.
And let's also briefly talk about that Los Angeles Dodgers game before we start to go into the MLB lineup generator. So that's the next thing we're going to do here, Jordan, is build some lineups in the lineup generator. But first, just want to touch on the weather in the Dodgers game, kind of similar to the Coors Field game last night. It's a pretty dicey spot. I'm going to be playing the Dodgers here, though, just like I went heavy on the Coors Field game last night. Ended up paying off. I did have a back and forth with Eric. We were texting, trying to figure out the merits of whether we wanted to stick with the Coors Field game or swap off it. I ultimately stuck with it, got rewarded. The Dodgers put 14 runs up on the board yesterday. And now today with the Dodgers, only projected for 7% ownership as a team going in a really positive matchup against Alec Marsh. And I wouldn't be surprised if that ownership comes in even lower because of some of the weather concerns. So there's certainly risk to be involved. If you guys don't want to take any chances, avoid the game. It's a big slate, but I think there's enough upside in the Dodgers in this matchup that I'm going to play them anyway. But what are you going to do with it?
Yeah, I also have a lot of Dodgers. I've got 19% Mookie Betts right now, 18% Freddie Freeman. Looks like I have, actually, I guess I can look at my actual stacks. Who do I have? Of the Dodgers, I've got, I think they're one of my highest exposed stacks. I'm trying to, 26 4-man. Okay. I guess I've got 26 4-man stacks. Where's my 5-mans? Oh, this must be again. Okay, never mind. Oh, it's because I don't have anybody favorited. Okay, now I understand what I'm doing wrong. I don't have any lineups favorited. I think I'm going to end up with a good amount of the Dodgers. I don't know what I'm. It's not. For some reason, it's not showing me just my favorites. It's showing me all of mine. So I'm not sure exactly how many I have, but I think I have a good amount of the Dodgers just based on exposures to their players.
Yeah, so it's definitely, like I said, a little bit of a dicey scenario, kind of like yesterday. We've got right around a 50% chance of thunderstorms. And yeah, if you get those thunderstorms to hit, then it would certainly be problematic. But here's the deal. It is not supposed to rain at the start of the game. It's supposed to start raining towards the middle of the game. So if the game starts on time, right, I'm just going to roll the dice and play it. If they have a late start in the game, I'm going to pull my players out because to me, if it's not raining now and they're doing a late start, it's a bad sign, right? So for right now, we've got about 20 minutes to go into lock, leaving the players in just to summarize. But if the game is a late start for the Kansas City Dodgers game, then I'm going to abort ship and pull those players out. For now, I'm hoping the weather's okay and I'm planning on playing it. Now, time to build some lineups in the MLB lineup generator, which is the easiest way for you guys to build lineups if you are a new DFS player or just new to MLB DFS in general. And we had somebody tweet at us yesterday, Derby Status on the Twitter.com, the Twitter app, said second day playing MLB DFS ever. And he shipped the 25K mini max for $2,500 and came in second in the $3 moonshot for another $1,000. And he said, all thanks to Stokastic.com, the great insight and the MLB lineup generator, which we're about to break down right here. Look at our guy right here, Derby Status, second time ever playing MLB DFS, and ends up shipping almost all of the low dollar contests by using the MLB lineup generator, which we're hoping that more of you guys could have some hits with as well. I know Neil had won, what was it, last week now, where you came in third in the moonshot?
I think it was last week. Oh, yeah, I think I got third in the moonshot.
Fast.
Yeah.
Time goes fast. But be like Neil, be like Derby Status. Sign up for the MLB lineup generator using the link below. Less than $5 when you sign up for the first time. It's going to give you winning lineups that are in the long run certainly going to make you profitable. And occasionally, some of those lineups will pop off like our friend Derby Status had hit here. Let's start with the DraftKings lineups here, Jordan, and we'll go balanced today. go all stack types, and then just balance lineups, right? Big slate, 13 games, lots of options. The ownership is also really spread out today. Our most popular offense is the Tigers at 11% projected ownership. Our most popular pitcher on the slate, it's John Gray at 26% projected ownership. So it's going to be pretty different. I should say pretty easy to make different looking lineups.
Yeah, agreed. It was the most spread out my exposure has ever been, I think, using.
Not right now.
I did all lineup types, so I guess there's a difference when you like you're just going into one bucket of lineup types. I do all lineups, so I get a total different range there. By the way, I'm loving reading Sean V in chat. Clearly, like he's still watching the deeper dive and responding, reacting to things. I have no idea if he knows that he's behind right now, but he's just reacting to everything from the deeper dive as we're talking.
Yeah, like why does Adam live in Baltimore? Because it's where he lives.
Right.
What do you want to do? Move it? Where would you, Sean? Where would you like him to move? I'll get it to his agent and I'll try to set something better up for him.
He's going to respond an hour after we're done, Greg.
That's probably true. Anyway, let's go and look at our lineups, which holy shit, do we get to a lot of Detroit Tigers. Matt Vierling, Jake Rogers, Andy Ibanez, Spencer Torkelson, Javi Baez, our 5 most rostered hitters, all coming from the Tigers. Neil, what are you doing with the Tigers in large field tournaments? They're popping up a ton here in our lineup generator.
Yeah, so I went back and cut back my Tigers exposure quite a bit. So if I got this in the lineup generator, I would go back, discard a lot of those Tigers stacks until I had much less exposure to the Tigers. And then I would like get rid of at least 10 of them probably. And then I go back and I would go get some contrarian lineups, which you have to go back. If you go to the top left, go back MLB lineup generator. I think that's the only way. If you go back to the top left, then you start at the beginning screen. Yep, exactly what Jordan just showed. If you go back to that screen, then you can go back and make your choices again. There I would go to some contrarian lineups because I think Matt Vierling in particular is just, I think he's the chalkiest Tigers bat, I believe. I could be wrong about that. But I would prefer to get away from some of that chalk. Like obviously, if they're showing up here a lot, it's obviously a good play. Like we know that it's good play if we're getting 90% of it in our lineups. But I don't want to have 90%. I don't want to put that much risk on the Tigers in particular. Even in Coors, they're just not a good enough team that I really want to be playing that much of the Tigers. So for me, I'd rather go back and find some contrarian lineups that are also plus EV in the contrarian bucket.
Yeah, we've got Matt Vierling projected for 20% ownership. So nothing insane, but that does make him the highest owned player from the Detroit Tigers. Then we got Jake Rogers projected for 15% ownership, Ibanez 16.5, and then nobody else even above 12% on the team. So it's kind of interesting because we do have individual players that are really popular. But if you have like Miguel Cabrera or Zach McKinstry in your Tiger stack, it's immediately contrarian. McKinstry is projected for 1% ownership. Miggy projected for 3%. Jake Marisnick, 4%. Zach Short, 4%. So if you build a Tiger stack with a couple of those end of the lineup hitters, it actually is going to be pretty contrarian.
Yeah, that is true. You can definitely build, and that's why we're getting to so much of the Tigers. Like I try to like give that caveat, like this is what I would do. I don't want to risk that much on the Tigers, but also every lineup that you get here is going to be a plus EV lineup. So like they're all balanced in the right way where you can play a 20% Matt Vierling because he's going to be in lineups where we have other players that are getting 3% ownership that bring down the total stack exposure or the overall lineup ownership. So these are all obviously good lineups, but to me, I'd prefer to spread out the risk when it comes to, and they're like, we were getting the same thing with the Dodgers the past few days. And I ate that. I was like, yeah, the Dodgers and Coors, I'm okay. Like I see 10% leverage, I think yesterday in the tools or whatever, one of those days. So I was like, I'm okay with that. With the Tigers, like they don't look that amazing in the top stack tool. So I would prefer to spread out my risk a little bit more.
All right. And by the way, we just had Kyrie Irving has re-signed with the Dallas Mavericks. So most of the player, I was going to say player movement, but it's not really movement. Most of the player contracts we've seen is just guys generally sticking on the same team. Kyrie Irving, 3 years, $126 million with the Mavericks. And then we've got Porzingis signed a 2-year, $60 million extension with the Celtics. Just a lot of players who are already at teams that are signing extensions or are, just re-upping with them. Anyway, let's go and build out some FanDuel lineups, Jordan, and we'll see how much difference this looks or how different it looks compared to the DK lineups. And let's go contrarian this time. So let's see if we go contrarian, if this gets us away from the Tigers at all.
Jeremy Grant. I didn't know that he was going to necessarily sign back with the Blazers.
No, it makes sense because, there's only so many moves they can make, and they're committed, it seems like, to having Dame come back. Dame is committed to sticking with the Blazers, so might as well bring back Jeremy Grant.
Yep. They paid him.
So even making contrarian lineups here on FanDuel, we got the 65% Ibanez, 45% Rogers, 45% Javi Baez, 45% Jake Vierling. So still a lot of Tigers, but it did bring down the ownership a little bit by making contrarian lineups.
Yeah, it did bring it down a little bit. And this, like, I'm more comfortable with this. Like Andy Ibanez, I might want to go back and get rid of some of my Andy Ibanez lineups, but overall, like, I like the way that it is spread out. Like, you don't need to be extremely spread out if you're only playing 20 lineups. You can be pretty condensed on a single team. So I like the way it turned out here.
Yeah, so you see the stack we got to the most on FanDuel is the Tigers, the second most, the Dodgers, and then it looks like the Angels, the third most, if you scroll down a little bit here. Yeah, Brandon Drury, Mike Trout. Keep scrolling. Were there other Angels hitters? Not, oh yeah, Taylor Ward. So Angel stacks there, and then also some Rocky stacks and Brewer stacks are showing up. So yeah, a lot more mixing and matching when we built contrarian lineups here on FanDuel. Pitchers we got to the most. Pablo Lopez, but at 30%, which once again, just the nature of this slate where there are not any real pitchers that we can feel terrific about or really try to build our lineups around and stake one guy as being the person that makes or breaks us. I don't think that's the way to go with pitcher today. So most rostered pitchers, you saw we had Pablo Lopez 30%, Freddie Peralta and 20% of lineups. Pretty spread out at pitcher, which is what I'm doing as well.
What do you think of Joe Ingles to the Magic? That doing anything for you? Move the needle?
Absolutely not.
Yeah. Me too. A couple years ago, maybe. He was a good role player a couple years ago.
Yeah, Joe Ingles. So Joe Ingles, where I am most familiar with him is I used to work with Josh Lloyd at Basketball Monster, and at a point in time, him and Joe Ingles were neighbors.
Oh, funny. That's cool.
Way back.
I thought Josh Lloyd was like Australian or something.
So is Joe Ingles.
Oh yeah. Okay. Right. Good point.
2 and 2 together. That's how it is.
Right.
Anything else you notice that stands out about these FanDuel lineups?
No, I think I agree with you. It's good to see that the pitchers are spread out. It's a little bit condensed around the Tigers, but I'm okay with that. I think I'm happy with the way these turned out. If I didn't have time and I just ran with these exact 20 lineups, I think I'd be okay with it.
Yeah, and so one other thing, Chris Middleton re-signed with the Bucks. I actually thought there was a pretty good chance he was going to sign elsewhere, but now that Middleton re-signed with the Bucks, I assume that means Brooke Lopez is probably going to leave and sign somewhere else, but we will see. Some questions coming in from our Discord. We've got Einsteinium is asking us if we have any love for Alex Cobb today. I believe that is a no.
Yeah, I did not notice any significant Alex Cobb exposure.
Yeah.
I was a little bit after we talked about pitchers. I thought maybe Carlos Carrasco is somebody that I would consider getting to, but I don't think I actually got to any, so can't really recommend it. I don't think I got to any. He actually looks good in the top pitchers to a 4% projected ownership. Talking about Alex Cobb, 4% projected ownership, 12% chance I'll be in a top 2 pitcher. So actually, I'm curious if I did get any.
Yeah. So the biggest issue I have with Alex Cobb is that he's coming off the injured list. He hasn't started since June 13th. Let's see if we had minor league numbers for him.
I got 7%. So I'm overweight to the field at 7%.
He made one rehab start. He only pitched 3 2/3 innings. I just think there's a good chance we're not getting more than 4 or 5 innings out of Alex Cobb. So I'd prefer to stay away from him. No love, right? The question was love. If you have him in a lineup or two, not the end of the world. Hard to love somebody who hasn't pitched in 3 weeks and only pitched 3 2/3 innings in his rehab start.
Yep.
Cam Johnson agrees to a 4-year, $108 million extension with the Nets. Cam Johnson, it's a solid re-sign there for the Nets. Next question. Wants to know, do we like the Pirates against Freddie Peralta today? No. No, not a team that I'm stacking today in the Pittsburgh Pirates. Listen, Freddie Peralta, maybe he's not as good as he was a couple of years ago, but relative to the other pitchers that we have on the slate, Freddie Peralta is one of the best pitchers that are pitching today. I prefer not to stack against him with the Pittsburgh Pirates here. Are you stacking up the Pirates at all?
Doesn't look like I have any Pirates. I have 3% Andrew McCutchen, apparently. But yeah, I'm definitely not getting to a lot of the Pirates. I might have a couple lineups here, but I'm not getting to any like significant amount of the Pirates.
Yeah, I don't have Pirate stacks. And my most rostered Pirate is let me just pull up the Pirates individually. My most rostered Pirate. Where's the game? I think it's Marcano at 2%. It is, it is Jake Sawinski at 3%. That is the Pirate I have the most exposure to. So no, not a team that I'm particularly interested in. And then Miller's High Life wants to know, how do I create my pool for one-offs in a 4-3-1 on FanDuel? Like, I don't do anything specific. I'm usually running 4-3 lineups, 4-4 lineups, 4-2 lineups, and then I upload them into the Sims tool. And whatever pops up as being my best lineups is what I play. But I don't think there's anything specific that you should be doing to look for one-offs. It's just going to be, which players are projecting the best relative to their ownership, have the highest upside, the best range of outcomes that are projected for the lowest ownership. And those are going to be the ones that pop up most frequently as one-offs. Do you have anything different that you would add to that, Neil?
So I play the same way as you. One thing that you could do that I know, so I had Peter Viles, who maybe he's listening to the show. I had him on High Stakes. He talked about he will sometimes set rules for like chalky players. So like really chalky, cheap players to only allow them to be in stacks. So like if you have him require at least 2 other players from the team or something like that. I don't know exactly how he did it, but that's something you could do. Like if you just want to avoid like chalky players who are chalky, not because they're good, but because they're cheap, you could consider doing something that's like only have them in lineups with the stack. It's not something that I do, but certainly he's a sharp player and I know that's something that he does.
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, nothing particular I do, and I'm just answering the question how I play on FanDuel. It's just I run the lineups, and what comes up is what comes up. There's not like anything I'm doing where like I'm boosting players or removing players from my player pool in any kind of way. So maybe not the answer you're looking for, because I feel like you wanted some kind of magic solution just going to give you the winning players, but fortunately, I don't have anything like that. The follow-up that we did say thank you to us, and he appreciates our answer. We've also got a question from Einsteinium. He says, after the ownership update, the Giants are popping up as a stack. He wants to know if we are getting to the Giants at all. Yes, I am getting to the Giants. And the primary reason I'm getting to the Giants is because of all the ownership on Dean Kramer. I think it's good leverage because I don't think Dean Kramer ever deserves to be somewhat popular.
Yeah, am I getting to any? I agree with you. Like it's a sharp play for that reason. Yeah, I guess I'm getting to a little bit. I have 4% Jock Peterson, 5% JD Davis. So I'm getting to a little bit of the Giants, not like a significant number.
Yeah, so once again, just to read off the numbers for Dean Kramer this year, and a couple of reasons why it's going to make sense to stack the Giants. Actually, threefold. Number one,
I thought Dean Kramer is pitching against the Twins. Is that not right?
Oh, whoops, my bad. I did misspeak there.
Okay.
He had asked us about the Giants. Yeah, I was thinking Twins on my mind. So the Giants, am I getting to the Giants? Why was I looking at the Twins? So the Giants against Carlos Carrasco? No, I'm getting to less of the Giants against Carrasco. I was thinking Twins is a leverage stack against Dean Kramer. I like the Twin, not exactly what the question was, but I'll answer why I like the Twins as a leverage stack. Dean Kramer, revisiting his numbers from before, 4.5 ERA, 5.73 expected ERA. So those are not great numbers. But here's the big thing, too. The way Dean Kramer gives up his runs, he only has a 35% ground ball rate, so a lot of balls hit in the air against him, and he's a 15.5% home run fly ball rate. So this is a pitcher who's very homer prone. So I know this is not the question Einsteinium asked, but I do like getting the Minnesota Twins as a leverage stack off of Dean Kramer because I think this is a pitcher who is prone to giving up runs and prone to giving up home runs.
Love it. Yeah, I also like the Twins, as I sort of alluded to earlier, for the same reason.
Yeah, so I like the Twins. The Twins, to me, is a contrarian stack to get to. They're only projected for 4% ownership. I'm overweight to that mark. Looking at the rest of the slate here at offenses, Neil, we've got 3 popular offenses. The Yankees, 9.5% owned right now against the St. Louis Cardinals. We got the Detroit Tigers at Coors Field, project for 11% ownership. The White Sox, 11% owned against Luis Medina and the Oakland A's. Are any of those offenses ones that you are well overweight to the field to?
So I cut back on my Tigers exposure. I think I'm still overweight to the field overall on the Tigers. And then the Yankees, I don't believe so. Actually, let me check. I think that I might be overweight to the White Sox as well. No, I don't think I am. I think it's just Detroit of those teams that I'm overweight to the field on. How about you?
So I'm about even with the field on the Tigers. And then when I'm looking at the other 2 offenses, I'm well underweight to the field on both of them. I'm way underweight to the White Sox, way underweight to the Yankees. This is one of the more contrarian slates I've played recently, running lineups through our simulation tool, which, by the way, if you guys hear us talking about the Sims, we do have a link for that to sign up for below. But I'm really spread out at offense. There's no team I'm getting to a bunch of. Like, we've had a lot of recent slates where it's been like, oh, I'm getting to 40% or 60% of the Dodgers. It's nothing like that for me, right? My most rostered offense is the Tigers, and I'm right around even with the field on them right now. In terms of the other stacks that I'm getting to, I do like getting overweight to the field on the Rocky side of the Colorado game. I talked about the Twins, the team I'm a little bit overweight to. I like getting overweight to the Dodgers, considering they're only projected for 7% ownership right now. Are there any teams that are projected for less ownership than these top stacks, Neil, that you're coming in a decent amount overweight to the field to?
Yeah, I mean, you and I both talked about the Twins already. Let me see if there are any other teams that I'm getting any kind of significant exposure to. Actually, it looks like I'm actually also with you. I'm getting to a decent amount of Arizona. Looks like I'm getting to a bit of Miami, which I hadn't realized that I'm getting to a good amount of at least some pieces of Miami. Other teams that look good in the top stacks tool, which might be a little bit of a different, it's probably a better like response than which teams I'm getting to. Colorado actually like is going under-owned in Coors Field. I think they look pretty good. 4%. And I don't know, maybe you already said this, maybe I wasn't listening close enough, but 4% projected ownership with a 7% chance of being the top stack. Colorado looks really good in the top stacks tool.
Yeah, I mean, it's Coors Field, right? Whenever you get a team that's going to be projected for low ownership at Coors, it's probably going to make sense. I was overweight to the field on both sides of the Coors Field game last night, the Rockies and the Dodgers. One side came through in a big way, the Rockies side less so, but still, I like getting to Colorado. Actually, so my most rostered offense I mentioned before is the Tigers, but right behind them for me is the Rockies and the Dodgers, two teams that I'm overweight to.
Nice. I like today is the day where everything that I look at when you ask me like what am I getting to, and I look at what I'm getting to using the Sims tool, it's like, oh, this is like what I like think I should be getting based on like the top stacks and top pitchers, which is cool to see.
Yeah, and I mean it's all the same data, right?
Exactly.
So
I mean, so it should turn out that it means that I'm getting better at using the tool. Maybe like I'm getting exposures that I like.
Yeah, it's not always going to be exactly the same, where it's not going to be like, hey, this team's projected for like a 7% chance to be the top stack. So you get to like, because there's other factors as well, like ownership being included and which pitchers stand on the slate, which is going to make different lineups sort to the top. But yeah, today in particular is a day where if you're running your lineups through the simulations using our data, you're going to get to numbers that are pretty closely mirroring some of the data from the top pitchers tool and the top stacks tool. So with that in mind, Neil, are there any super low owned stacks that you're taking any kind of stand on? Any team that's projected for 1 or 2% ownership that you have like 7-8% of or anything like that?
I don't believe so, like in terms of what I actually played. But I'm going to see if there's somebody that I mean, the Rays look pretty good. 1% projected ownership for the Rays is always going to look kind of good with a 2.4% chance of being the top stack. I would say they're a team that I might take some shots on if I were going to redo my process or do it in a different way. You and I already both talked about Arizona. I know that you like them. Yep. They're coming in at 2%. Looks good there. As I said, Miami is a team that I'm actually getting to a decent amount of against Michael Soroka, which sort of surprised me, but they're in Atlanta, so it's a park upgrade for the Marlins. They look okay. Yeah, I'd say those are, I don't know that I'm getting to any like super contrarian outside of those few lineups. How about you?
Yeah, so for me, the Diamondbacks were going to be one, but the lineup actually came out over the course of the show, and Corbin Carroll isn't in it. He's banged up. He left the game with neck stiffness yesterday. So that is going to be something that has me less inclined to play the Diamondbacks. I'm going to lower my exposure to them once we get off of this in a few minutes after the slate locks. So a little bit less bullish on them now with no Corbin Carroll in the lineup. Not that I'll get off them entirely, but I'll be a little bit less exposed to them. As far as some other teams that I'm also overweight to, let's see. So another team I like is the Milwaukee Brewers. Kind of funny. I'm playing a little bit of both sides of that when it comes to the Brewers. I've got some exposure to Osvaldo Bido. I also am overweight to the Milwaukee Brewers. I don't think Bido is any good. He's just cheap. He has some strikeout equity, but I generally think he's somebody who's going to get hit pretty hard over the course of his big league career. So I do have more exposure to the Brewers side of the game than I have of Bido individually right now in terms of all the hitters ownership added together. So Milwaukee Brewers, one for me as well. Want to do some home run picks, Neil? And then we'll wrap it up for the night.
Yeah, I can do some home run picks.
All right. So don't be a dick like Eric yesterday, where I picked Kyle Schwarber, and Eric goes, "Oh, it's too easy of an answer," which it didn't. The only rule we had said is that you couldn't pick somebody from Orfield. I picked Kyle Schwarber. Eric says he starts crying as he usually does, and says that, like, "Oh, you can't do Kyle Schwarber." And what if Kyle Schwarber homers on the first pitch of the game?
Yeah.
So don't be a dick like Eric. You could pick anybody who isn't at Orfield. Who are you answering?
I will say this happened on the last Saturday show that I did with Adam, and I nailed my first pick, and then somebody said, "Oh, Matt Olson is, you can't pick Matt Olson because he's in Great American Ballpark, whatever." And then I nailed the second one too, so it was beautiful. I'm gonna go with. Hang on. I mean, Jock Peterson is the number one in the top batters tool by a good margin, so I'm going Jock Peterson.
All right, you are going Jock Peterson. I am going to go with, look through my exposures. Who would I like to homer? Who would benefit me? All right, Freddie Freeman. Right, we got that Dodgers game taking place in some potential bad weather situation in Kansas City. The ownership has slowly started to slide on the Dodgers. Give me Freddie Freeman. I like the Dodgers as a team to be overweight to the field too. That's my home run pick of the day. And that's going to do it for us. Guys, thank you very much for watching. If you've not done yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and check out our podcast channel as well. If you guys are ever on the go and want to have a chance to listen to us, but maybe you don't have access to YouTube, download our podcast and also leave us a 5-star review while you're there. I have a giveaway going up on Twitter. If you guys check out my Twitter account, you could leave a reply to that with a picture of a 5-star review left to our podcast channel and give yourself a chance to win 1 free month of Stochastic Plus Platinum. But other than that, guys, I hope you have a great weekend. I hope all your lineups are winners today, and I'll see you back here next week.